Fibonacci.
Fibonacci is an Italian mathematician in the 13th century. If you divide 144 into 233, the result approaches theta.
Theta?
Theta. The Greek symbol for golden ratio, golden spiral.
Wow. I never saw that before. That's like that series you find in nature? Like the face of a sunflower?
Wherever the spirals.
You see this math everywhere.
Welcome back to the Gnostic Informant, and you are about to attain true gnosis. And I'm trying a totally different system right now. Right off the bat, can you guys hear my microphone right now? I'm watching the chat right now. Can you guys hear me? Am I loud? Am I muted? What's going on here? I'm gonna need some help here. It's the first time new setup, so I'm gonna need some help with the crowd right now. Audio is quiet but can hear. Okay, we can fix that. Let's see. Let's do this. Let's do this. Boom, 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 boom. Let's try that. How's that? A little better? A little more louder? Boom, boom, boom. Does that sound louder? Too low? Turn up? Keep going? Even louder? Check, 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 check. How's that? Is that better? Turn it up. Audio is faint. How's that? Better? I just boosted it up a lot, guys. You should be able to hear it by now. Still? Better? I'm surprised. Really? I can see the levels are like red. They're like slightly better. It should be super loud. I can hear myself like really, really loud right now. So it should be better. It should be better right now. I can turn my earphones down. Maybe that'll help me so I don't... Okay, we're good now? All right. 64 is the number. 64 dB is the secret number. We're going to save that setting for this. All right. Glad I got you guys. And I'm glad I got the chat going. If you guys send super chats, you'll light up the screen. Everybody can light me up now. That'll be fun. People who subscribe and I could go down a little more. Okay, let's go down to 60. How's that? That much better? I can keep up my my voice up a little bit too. So, okay, so let's get into some pre-Socratic philosophers, dude. Like, the reason why I wanted to talk about this, I'm going back to reading Friedrich Nietzsche's The Tragic Age of the Greeks. This book right here. Philosophy in the Tragic Age of the Greeks. Maybe I can see it better with the light. There we go. And he talks about this age, this golden age of our world, before Plato. We should have a different timing. BC, instead of BC AD, it should be BPAP or BSAS. Bullshit after bullshit. Before Socrates, after Socrates. Please turn up. Is it still low again? I thought everyone said it was good. Getting a bit closer to the mic helps. Yeah, I just have to have my mic. I have to be able to get to my... I can get closer like this. There we go. This will probably work right here. 62, 63, a little bit closer. There we go. How was that? Is that better? Louder? Loud enough? I'm watching the chat right now. Mic is cutting off and on. Someone else said volume is fine. No, it's good. It is still low. Sounds fine. Getting a mixed messages from you guys. Put it at 65. All right, 65 it is. 65 it is, right there. Boom. There we go. Okay. Now, this is a book that I recommend. Also, another book on top of this, more of an academic book, is Kirk and Raven, the Pre-Socratic Philosophers. This is an old book from like 1950, I want to say. But it's all the pre-Socratic philosophers in one place. It has the Greek, like every page, for example, let me show you. Every page, you can see it has the Greek on one side, and then it translates the next paragraph. So it gives you all the original fragments of the pre-Socratic philosophers, and it gives you Thales, Anaximander, Anaximenes, Xenophanes, Heraclitus, Pythagoras, Alcmaeon, Parmenides, Zeno, Melissus, Philolaus, Empedocles, Anaxagoras, Archelaus, and then the atomists, Democritus and Leucippus, and even Diogenes of Apollonia. It's thorough. Like, you literally cannot get a better book more thorough than this book right here from Kirk and Raven. So, we're going to be digging into that. I want to, first of all, I made this chart right here. I want to show you my chart. This is the pre-Socratic philosophers. I started off, and I kind of used a little bit of artistic, free, like, my own little personal, and I tossed in Orpheus and Musaeus and Linus, and the heroic age, Homer and Hesiod. Giving a genealogy, a real genealogy that we can look at. The Bible does the same thing. Genesis does this, the genealogy stuff. I figured I'd make my own for the Greeks, from Orpheus to Plato. Because Plato is from the Orphic line in many ways. He's citing all the Orphic mythologies. He talks about Orpheus and Musaeus quite often. And so it starts with Orpheus. Maybe he existed, maybe he didn't. I think he probably did. And then you have these polymaths, these poets. They were priests, poets, singers, lawgivers. Musaeus of Athens is one of them. Linus is another one. Sometimes they're credited for starting the Eleusinian mysteries and Samothracian mysteries as well. So they're giving us religion, they're giving us philosophy, they're giving us mathematics, morality, ethics, mythology, all of our culture, if you want to say. And so what happens, though, is after Aesop is probably after the Seven Sages of Greece, but it doesn't matter because I'm putting him in that heroic age too, because he is the turn away from the heroic stuff and into the morality stuff. He's telling fables that are to give for morals. And then you obviously have the Seven Sages. I'm not going to talk much about them. I'm going to do a whole different video on the Seven Sages of Greece. So put those aside for now. Those are like lawgivers, tyrants, rulers, and then a couple philosophers in there. And I switched out Thales with Epimenides. If somebody who has a keen eye might be like, wait a minute, your Seven Sages aren't right. Thales is supposed to be in there. Yeah, you're right. I know that. In some list, Epimenides is listed, so I switched Epimenides with Thales. And we're going to start with Thales. I was going to start with Pherecydes, but I want to start with Thales because Thales represents sort of this, the beginning of the monistic scientific mind. Pherecydes, and the reason why I put Pherecydes right after that line of Orpheus is because he still sort of adopts the Hesiodic Orphic model of the theogony. His science is all embedded and encoded in his mythologies, whereas Thales just goes on and just starts writing natural philosophy, theories, and Thales believed that the beginning of everything was water. Arche is water. And so, let me see if I can, what I can do is I can pull up what Loeb has on Thales. And real quick, before I even get into Thales, oh yeah, Nietzsche. I wanted to read what Nietzsche says about Thales. He says, but once again, this is from Tragic Age, the Philosophy of the Tragic Age of the Greeks. He says, first of all, let me just check my, are we good in the chat right now? Oh yeah, I have a quiz, by the way. I have a quiz. It's in the description, and I pinned it to the comments. And the quiz is, which philosopher introduced the concept of Apeiron, infinite, as the source of all things? Thales? Is it Thales? Oh shit, we got a super chat or a subscriber. Thank you, Uncle Belly, for subscribing. Appreciate that. So is it Thales? Is that the answer? A. B. Anaximenes of Miletus, Anaximander of Miletus, or Anaxagoras of Clazomenae? So, I'm not going to give the answer right now. We're going to wait. It's going to come up when I'm in the middle of this. You're going to see it's going to get to. So is it Thales? We're on Thales right now. Put one in the chat if you think it's Thales. Do you think it's Thales? Go ahead. Go ahead. Dare to write number one in the chat, or A for Thales, or just write Thales. But Nietzsche writes this. He says, Greek philosophy seems to begin with an absurd notion, with the proposition that water is the primal origin and the womb of all things. Is it really necessary for us to take serious notice of this proposition? It is. And for three reasons. I love this passage. First, because it tells us something about the primal origin of all things. Second, because it does so in a language devoid of image or fable. Remember what I said. This is why I made this list this way. I took Thales out of that first lineup, and it ends with Pherecydes. Thales moves over to the new material monist Ionian school. And he's not telling fables anymore. He's telling it as it is. He's trying to map on philosophy to reality. And okay, that's two. Two, because it does in a language devoid of image or fable. And finally, three, because contained in it, if only embryonically, is the thought, all things are one. All things are one. The first reason still leaves Thales in the company of the religious and the superstitious. The second takes him out of such company and shows him as the natural scientist. But the third makes him the Greek philosopher. Had he said water turns into earth, we should have but a scientific hypothesis, a wrong one, but difficult to disprove. But he went beyond scientific considerations by presenting his unity concept in the form of his water hypothesis. All right, that's enough of that. So, Thales, all is water, or water is arche. And it's, we have sources about Thales traveling to Babylon and Egypt and learning the science of the day. I mean, I don't know if you guys know, in the Bronze Age, the scientists were the Babylonians and the Egyptians. And, that was where the major education was. And that knowledge gets passed to the Greeks by these people who travel there and learn this stuff. And the Thales theorem is a big deal. He apparently learned it from Egyptians and Babylonians. Pythagorean theorem, those type of things. So this is he's a natural scientist. And And that's really that's far I want to go with Thales. I do want to share. I do want to share my screen and read a few things by what we have in Loeb. And so, there we go. This is pretty easy to use. This new program I'm using, OBS. There we go. So let me know if you guys can see that. I think you guys can see that. Pretty sure you can. All right. So Thales, Diogenes Laertius is the main source. Galen passes down some stuff on him too. Galen says on the nature of man. This is a fragment from Thales right here. We are not able to demonstrate on the basis of a treatise by Thales. This is from Galen. By Thales, that he declared that water was the only element, even if this is what everyone believes. Now, he's not right about this, but it is interesting that scientists now are saying that abiogenesis would have taken place in water, that we need water for life. So he guessed right in a way. In the same way that the atomists also guess right that there is truly an atomic, subatomic realm to reality. So what else we got from Thales? Here is a fragment from Aetius. The stars are made of earth, but they are on fire. Thales, the sun is made of the earth. The sun is made of earth. So, hey, Thales was still ways away from being correct about some of his observations. But the water thing is what he's famous for. And then he was apparently very skilled in mathematics as well. So, Thales is good. Thales thinks that the Etesian winds that blow up Egypt in the opposite direction raise the Nile's bulk because its outflow is driven back by the swelling of the sea, which comes to meet it. Thales thought that all things are full of gods. And that's part of the whole tradition of the daimonic muse tradition, that the gods are sort of present, omnipresent all the time. And so this will definitely influence Platonism later on. He does have some inspiration to the Platonic tradition that ends up being the major tradition of, all the West, pretty much. So, okay, so that's Thales. The next person I want to get into is Anaxagoras. So, remember that quiz, right? Is he the one? We're talking about Anaxagoras. I'm sorry. The next one I want, Anaximenes of Miletus. So we're still in the Miletian school. So let's go back to this list, right? Anaximander is the one I'm looking at next. From the Miletus school. I think I just said 3 different names. Okay, my bad. Anaximander is what I'm going to next. So Anaximander is also from Miletus, from the school of, from right where Thales was, and he's the one who puts a new spin on the arche. That the arche is nature or physis. And I'm not going to tell you what he says, though. I'm going to skip ahead to Anaximenes. I'm going to come back to him. Because Anaximenes is the one who says that air is the arche, not water. And he calls it the pneuma, the spirit. So you get this in the Hebrew Bible, by the way, that God blows the breath of life into Adam. And it's the pneuma in Greek, in the Greek side. That is the Anaximenian worldview. That air is the arche, is the pneuma. So then the next thinker in the Miletian school is Anaximander, the one I just skipped. He's the one who calls the arche Apeiron. So he was the answer. The answer was B, Anaximander. Now, Anaxagoras, I threw him in there to try to throw you off with all these Anaximander, Anaximenes, Anaxagoras. I ended up throwing myself off. But Anaxagoras, the reason why he is so important is because he takes these ideas and these monists, these material monists that I've described so far, Thales, Anaximander, Anaximenes, they don't really give the arche sort of a mind. Like, it's, people debate on, is this a god? Is this a deity at all? Is it just nature itself? Is it divine providence, some people will call it? It's just material monism. It doesn't actually, there's no like creative function yet in these ideas. Well, that's where we get to Anaxagoras. Anaxagoras calls it the nous, the mind, which is what we find in Plato's Timaeus. The nous is the first emanation of the one. And the Neoplatonists will obviously adopt this too. So that's where this idea comes from. That's where this monistic tradition ends up becoming the first thing of all is the nous. So forget about water. Heraclitus, however, said that he's the first one to use the term logos, word, if you want to call it that. And he said that the logos is a fire, which is, here, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about here. Let's go back to showing the screen. Where'd it go? There we go. So if we go to Heraclitus, what do we got here? Super chat? Super chat dropped in. Thank you.
At Rajanawald has dropped $5 super chat. Norse and Vedic creations also place air, Ginanugap/Prana as the arca whence all materia is begotten.
Yeah. Let me just read what you just said again. So Norse and Vedic creations also place air, the breath of life, the spirit, as the arche. That seems to be pretty ubiquitous in a lot of these ancient traditions, that there was some sort of spirit that was all pervading, that kind of connects everything together. So that's what I think is going on in these early monistic doctrines. And this doesn't mean they don't believe in the gods. When you talk about monism, this is what happens a lot. People learn about monism and they think this is the same as monotheism. No, it's not. Monism is talking about the origin. That's why I use the term arche. Origin. The origin of all things. Even Hesiod, to some degree, to bring out my list, even Hesiod and Orpheus are monists that they believe in chaos. They just call it chaos. That's their arche. So monism doesn't mean monotheism. Something I noticed with Ammonites too. They go, the monists are doing this, the monists are doing that. They sound like children that don't know what they're doing. They don't even have like a 101 understanding of Greek philosophy when they say stuff like that. That's not, monism is not monotheism. Monotheism is going to pop up though. Through the monistic line, there are monotheists. But the majority of the monists are polytheist. Plato was a polytheist. But you can see on my list, I have there Xenophanes. He was the first true monotheist, in my opinion. And I'll get to him in a minute. But I want to show some of what Heraclitus says, if I can. By the way, thank you for that super chat. So let's go to Heraclitus. Heraclitus, let's go. Heraclitus on the universe, or on the cosmos. And you can see, these are the fragments. Here we go, we got a super chat, I think. Or is this a subscriber? Thank you, Eric, for subscribing. Appreciate you. All right, so Heraclitus on the cosmos, it says, it is wise to listen not to me, but to the word and confess that all things are one. So there's this monistic attitude in the Ionian school of thought. And by the way, these are all Ionians. Heraclitus is in Ephesus, which is right off the coast of Turkey, Ionian. Miletus is also on the coast of Turkey. So you can see they're all from the Ionian school. These are Ionians. We're not even in Athens yet. We're going to get there. Athens is where all these ideas sort of fall into. But a lot of people on this list are not even their schools aren't even in Athens. So Thales travels to Athens. Heraclitus stays in Ephesus. Pythagoras goes from Samos to Babylon to Egypt, and then he goes to southern Italy. Parmenides also goes from Velea or Elea, or it's pronounced both ways, and he travels also to southern or central Italy, right near south of Rome, pretty much. And a lot of these pre-Socratics are either in southern Italy. Some of them go to Sicily. Some of them go to Turkey, or in Turkey. Some of them are, they're not all in. This is not even Athens yet. It becomes an Athenian school by the time you get to Socrates and Plato. And then after Plato, a couple generations after Plato, the school moves to Alexandria, when you get to Demetrius Phalereon, which I'll talk about him in a minute too. So let's pull up Heraclitus, one of my favorites. And he's like the Nietzsche of the ancient world. He talks a lot of, Nietzsche, if you read a lot of Nietzsche, he's talking smack about his contemporaries. And this is what Heraclitus does. And you'll see in a minute, he talks about everybody. He's talking crap about Homer, he's talking crap about Pythagoras, he's talking crap about Thales. He hates everybody. He hates the Bacchic cults, he hates them too. So he says this logos, right here, to de logu, of this word, this logos, which is ever true, men prove as incapable of understanding when they hear it for the first time as before they have heard it at all. For although all things happen in accordance with this logos, I like using the word logos, because I'm trying to really drill home what this. The word doesn't really translate it right, because logos doesn't just mean word. It could mean reason. It could mean an account. That's actually a really good translation. Account. This account, which is ever true, or the reason for things, there's a lot of ways you can translate logos, but word is like a really basic, and we use that because it's in our English Bibles for John, so it's very familiar, which is fine. I like it. I don't mind it, but I just I'm going to use the word logos transliterated so people know it can mean more than one thing. Men seem as though they had no experience thereof, when they make experiment with such words and works as I relate, dividing each thing according to its nature and setting forth how it really is. Talking about the objective truth of reality. It doesn't care about your dogmas. It doesn't care about what you want to be true. This is the hard truth, the cold truth. The rest of men know not what they do when awake, just as they forget what they do when asleep. Whoo! Aristotle, this is another fragment from Hippolytus. So he's talking about, Aristotle's talking about, this is obviously that's later. So, okay, so these are fragments. These are preserved in multiple different sources. We don't actually have a papyri of Heraclitus. These are all fragments that someone else preserved. But they're pretty well attested though, because they show up in different areas and they agree with each other. Here's another one that I think is interesting. The Sibyl, having raving mouth, utters things mirthless, unadorned and unperformed, but with her voice she extends over 1,000 years because of Theon, because of Ton Theon. because of God, you know. So it was a very monotheistic attitude in Heraclitus with the God, not the gods, the God, right? And the Sibyl is the logos, is the word of this God. The Sibyl is the voice that Apollo speaks. So you can see there's a monistic God, and then there's an echelon, a hierarchy going on. We have the God, ton theon, and then the Sibyl who speaks for the God. And it's the logos. The logos is the active reason that's bringing forth the will of the one. Because the one is not dealing with us. We deal with the daimons. The one is already, it's too perfect. You can't even get to it. It doesn't even make sense. I can't even explain it. It's just too much. That's how these Greeks thought. And in this proceeding, he seems calling attention to his oracular style, which was in part due to strong religious emotion of his age. There is much that is oracular in Aeschylus and Pindar. I just want to skip ahead. Oh, here we go. I skipped one. I missed one. This is another fragment. Much learning does not teach understanding. So he's taking shots at these philosophers of his time. Learning does not teach understanding. How true is that? It's very true. I know a lot of scholars. I love this passage. Let me finish it first and I'll talk about it. Or it would have taught Hesiod and Pythagoras, as well as Xenophanes and Hecataeus. Whoo! He's calling them as this is the commentary. Is this plain from the following fragment? This is an attack on the confusing secondhand information with the true understanding, the aletheia, and education. It is unfair to the mathematical achievements of Pythagoras and scarcely does justice to the theological acumen of Xenophanes, to say nothing wonderful. Okay, why is he talking crap? And I actually agree with Heraclitus, dude. There's a big difference between knowing what the scholarship is. I know a lot of these scholars, man. I know so many of these cookie cutter scholars. They know a lot of this. They know a lot of the scholarship. They know the answer. They know what the answer is. They can pass the test. But do they understand the nuances of why that's the answer? No. And I'm saying, I know it's going to sound cocky right now, but most good scholars who hear this will agree with me on this. They'll say, yeah, I actually agree with him on this. Most PhDs are just, they know they're good at one thing, whatever their dissertation was. And then when it comes to like all these other subjects, they just know the answers. They just know what the consensus is, but they don't know like the secondary. There's usually a secondary consensus of like a different answer to the question or whatever it is we're debating, right? So it's like, the age of how old is the Old Testament or something? How old is Genesis? And the consensus might be like 600 BC. And then there's another wave of scholars who will say, no, it's like 200, 300 BC. And it seems like a lot of scholars will just go, well, the consensus says this, so those guys are wrong. But why? Why are they wrong? Do you understand why scholars are saying it's 600 versus why other ones are saying 300? Do you understand the nuance? That's something I've noticed in the half a decade to a decade of me dealing with academics. A lot of academics are very thorough and know they have deep understanding of these subjects. A lot of them just are, they just learned it. So they just know the answers. Big difference between the two. So this is a really deep philosophical point about learning and understanding. Two different things. Let's see. There's some pretty deep stuff in here that I want people to see. Oh wait, did I skip one? So he talks right here about Sophia. Wisdom. Sophia is one thing. To know the thought whereby all things are steered through all things. That is to understand the doctrine of opposites and of perpetual change. And this is central to Heraclitus right here. The doctrine of flux. And basically, Heraclitus was in a debate with Parmenides. Now, I don't know if they actually were debating, like physically, like they got together and debated, but the ideas of Heraclitus are being pinned up against the ideas of Parmenides by people like Aristotle and Plato, for example. And Heraclitus believed in the flux, which is the doctrine of becoming in philosophy. The becoming versus being. Parmenides, on the other hand, believed in the doctrine of being, which is that the world of flux is an illusion. The world that we see, this world of decaying and death, it's an illusion. There is just one truth, and it's eternal. And he would say things like, what is not, cannot be. Change requires something to become. So change is impossible. That's Parmenides. And he says it's just an illusion. And I think he's wrong. Heraclitus, who I agree with, says all things are in flux. You cannot step into the same river twice. Let me see if I can find that passage actually. River. Do a word search for river. Oh, really? I can't find river in Heraclitus? Maybe it's a stream or something. Twice. Here we go. Okay. Rivers. That's why. Here it is right here. Heraclitus. You cannot step twice into the same rivers, for other waters are ever flowing onto you. He's talking about the eternal flux of the cosmos. And so that's Heraclitus. And he talks about the unity of opposites. Let me see if I can find the one about the lyre. I like the bow and the lyre. No? Where's the one with the bow? Let me see. Here we go. He says, they understand. Oh, this is good. This is good. Heraclitus rebukes the poet who says, would that strife, and he's talking about Parmenides here, would strife might perish from among gods and men. For there could be, he said, no attunement without the opposites high and low. No animals without the opposites male and female. War. It's almost like Heraclitus read the Bhagavad Gita. Because what you're about to hear right now is very Hindu. It's like the Bhagavad Gita. And maybe he gets this through the Persians because he's living under the Persian Empire. War is the father of all and the king of all. Some he has marked out to be gods, some to be men. Some he has made slaves, and some free. They understand not how that which is at variance with itself agrees with itself. There is attunement of opposite tensions, like that of a bow and a harp. Harmony of opposites. So do you understand that? This is the dialectic. This is, in many ways, proto-Hegelian, if you think about it. I'm not big into Hegel yet, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I know Hegel's dialectic is you have these two sides that are eternally at war. So you have cold and hot. You have male and female. You have night and day. You have all these dual opposites that are pulling at each other. And the constant stress of these pulling at each other actually is what is necessary. It actually is like the way you pull strings together to make a beautiful harp, and the sound is like harmonious. It's harmony. You can't have a beautiful harp without pulling both sides together. And you can't make a bow and arrow without having the stress of the two sides pulled together. So war and music, there's two images of like peace and war. It's very deep if you think about it. It's true too. I mean, we're all, if you look at history and even today, there's always a unity of opposites constantly going at it. And the reason why I brought up the Bhagavad Gita is because that's what happens in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is talking to Arjun and discussing why war is necessary and why he must act in his duty and fight his uncle Bhishma. And it's deep, dude. It's some deep stuff. So, okay, so that is Heraclitus. And if I can, now I'm going to go, so I already told you about Parmenides, who is his opposite, who is his philosophical opposite. And so to jump over to Parmenides real quick, Parmenides, we actually have a lot of his works from. We actually have quite a bit survives. And he has this poem called On Nature, or sometimes it's called The Journey to the Goddess. And, yeah, let's read it. The mares that carry me as far as the Ardor might go, were bringing me onward, after having led me and set me down on the divinity's many-worded road, which carries through all the towns. The man who knows. It was on this road that I was being carried, for on it much knowing horses were carrying me. Straining at the chariot, maidens were leading the way. And it says, let me just see something real quick. It says, Kore. Okay. I'm just trying to see if I want, this is the part what I want to read. Okay, the axle and the naves emitted the whistle of a flute. As it was heated, for it was pressed hard by two whirling wheels, one on each side, while the maidens of the sun hastened to bring me, after they had left behind the palace of night, towards the light, and pushed me back the veils from their heads with their hands. That is where the gate of the paths of night and day is. And the lintel and a stone threshold hold on both sides, itself ethereal. It is occupied by great doors, and much punishing justice. Decay is the word he uses here, justice. Decay holds alternating keys. The maidens, cajoling her with gentle words, wisely persuaded her to thrust quickly back for them the bolted bar from the gate. And when it flew open, it made a gasping absence of the doors after rotating in turn. In their sockets, the two bronze pivots fastened with pegs and rivets. There, through them, the maidens guided the chariot and horses straight along the way, and the goddess welcomed me graciously, took my right hand. In her own hand, she spoke these words, addressing me. So this is the goddess Decay, or justice, speaking to Parmenides in a vision. Young man, companion of deathless charioteers, you who have come to our home by the mares that carry you. I greet you. Rejoice. Kyrie, that's a big term in Christianity too. For it is no evil fate that has sent you to travel this road, for indeed it is remote from the paths of men, but right and justice. Themis and Decay. Right and justice. It is necessary that you learn everything, both the unshakable heart of well-convincing truth and the opinions of mortals in which there is no true belief, pistis, faith. But nonetheless, you will learn this too, how opinions, would have to be acceptable, forever penetrating all things. Proclus adds more to this fragment right here. The point from which I shall begin, for I shall return there once again. Well then, as for me, I shall say, and as for you, have a care for this discourse when you have heard it. What are the only roads of investigation for thought? That one, the one that is, and that is not possible, that is not. Parmenides thinks it's impossible for something to not exist. That's what he's saying here. Either it is or it isn't. Is the path of conviction, for it accompanies truth. The other, that is not, and that is necessary, that is not. I show you that it is a path that cannot be inquired into at all. For you could not know that which is not, for this is the impractical. Nor could you show it, for it is the same to think, and also to be. It is necessary to say and to think that this is being, for it is possible that it is, while nothing is not. That is exactly what I bid you to meditate. For such is the first road of investigation from which you, but then also from this one, which mortals who know nothing, invent the two-headed creatures, I guess, for the helplessness, and their breast directs their wandering thoughts, and they are borne along. Deaf and likewise blind, stupefied, tribes undecided. Who suppose that this is and is not, is the same, and not the same, and that of all things the path is backward turning. For never at all could you master this, that things are not are. But as for you, keep your thought away from this road of investigation, and do not let much experienced habit force you down into this road, to wield an aimless eye and an echoing ear and tongue. No, by the argument, decide the much disputed refutation spoken by me. There only remains the word of the path. Is. On this one there are signs, very many of them, that being it, is ungenerated, indestructible. They use the word Adamus too, I'm pretty sure. Let me see if I can find it. Indestructible. Words. Monos, Puthos, Oidoio, Osostine. I guess not. They don't use that word there. They use a different word. Complete, single-born, untrembling, unending, and was not, nor will it be at the same time, since it is now together whole. So, he goes on. The goddess goes on and telling him about how there's an objective truth which is all eternal, unchanging, indestructible. That is, there's one true reality, and that reality is just being itself. So it's really kind of meta. So it says, this is why justice has not, loosening its fetters, allowed it to either be born or to be destroyed, but holds fast. The decision on these matters depends on this: is or is not. Well, it has been decided, as is necessary, to abandon the one as unthinkable, unnameable, for it is not the true road, and thereby the other by consequence exists and is real. How then could what is exist afterward, and how could it be born? For if it was born, it is not any more than it is going to be someday. In this way, birth is extinguished and unknowable destruction, nor is it divisible, since as a whole it is similar. So you get the point. Like, but besides what it is, since destiny has bound this to be whole and unmovable, so that a name will be all things, and which mortals have established, convinced they are true. For neither there is non-being which could stop it from reaching what is similar to it, nor is there being, so that of being there would be more here and less there, since as a whole is unviolable. All right. I also wanted to get to, the next one I wanted to get to was, we did Heraclitus. We got the four major material models. Okay, I wanted to go to Pherecydes. I actually have a passage in Pherecydes from this book right here, the Pre-Socratics by Kirk and Raven. And this is this one right here. Can you see that? Let me just see. Are you guys? Oh, okay. Here we go. I had to fix that over here. Are you see? Can you guys see that? Okay, there. I just had to fix the. That's all I got to do. So it says. The assertion, so this is like allegedly this guy Pherecydes from Syros was taught by Phoenicians or something. This is like a rumor that was going on, and the scholar that wrote this doesn't think it's true. The assertion that Pherecydes was self-taught probably means no more than that no teacher could conveniently be supplied for him when his complete biography came to be written. That he used Phoenician secret books, an unlikely story indeed, is another piece of speculation of the type beloved by the biographical compilators. Yet it must have had some foundation, and may be based on apparently Oriental motifs in his thought. He was later connected with Zoroastrianism and the battle of Kronos and Ophiuneus, like that of Zeus and Typhoeus and Hesiod, had some Phoenician affinities. So let's check this out. You want to hear this Phoenician stuff? Let's check it out, right? So Pherecydes, and he dates to like the end of the 7th century, early 6th century BC. So, by the way, some sources say he taught Pythagoras, that he is the teacher of Pythagoras. So, just keep that in mind while I'm reading this. These are the writings, the 7 nooks, mixture of the gods, and theogony. This theology comprising of the birth, succession of the gods. Theopompus says that he was the first to write for the Greeks about nature and the gods. Maximus of Tyre, consider all these poetry of the man of Syros. The book, in the beginning, Zos, or Zeus, but he spells it Zeta, Alpha, Sigma, 3 letters. So you have Zos and Kronos, and then Chthoni. Instead of Gaia, it's Chthoni. That's interesting. And then it says, but the name of Chthoni became Gaia, or Earth, or Gain, right here, when Zos gave her the earth as a present. So Pherecydes of Syros says that Kronos made out of his own seed fire, breath, and water. Now, this is why I wanted to come up to him after I went through the Material Monist, because I'm kind of going backwards. But what's interesting is you have Heraclitus's fire, you have Anaximenes, pneuma, and then you have Thales, water. And he's talking about Kronos made out of his own seed, those three things, out of which they had been distributed in 5 nooks, was created another numerous generation of gods called the 5-nook one. Achilles Tatius Thales and Pherecydes posit the principle of all things water, while Pherecydes calls it chaos. So here we go. Pherecydes, according to Proclus, said that when Zeus was about to begin his work of creation, he transformed himself into Eros, or love. You know, it's one of the words for love, or you know. For him, Zos, they make buildings, many and great, and when they had finished them all, the objects, male servants, female servants, and everything else that is necessary, when then everything is ready, they perform the wedding. And when the third day of the wedding comes, Zos makes a robe, great and beautiful, and on it he embroiders earth, ocean, and the houses of Oganos. Zeus speaks to Chthoni, since I want this marriage to be yours, it is you that I honor with this, but you receive my greeting and be my wife. They say that these were the first and Anacolapteria. They were performed, and from this time this custom has existed from both gods and men. And she answers him, receiving a robe from him. So this is another comment from Celsus. Pherecydes is more ancient than Heraclitus, invented the myth of one army set in order against another army. Gave the command, this is, by the way, what he's saying here is, why is this important? Celsus, when he's talking about revelation, or like the warring of the angels and the demons, he says this idea goes back to Pherecydes. Pherecydes was the one who invented the myth of one army set in order against another army, the good versus evil motif. Gave the command of the one to Kronos and the other to Ophianos, which is the serpent, the giant dragon. That's what that is. That's what that literally means, serpent, Ophis. So he's this giant dragon deity. And then Kronos goes to battle. Kronos and his messengers battle him. Got a super chat.
At Rajanawald has dropped $10 super chat. I believe Kronos is Plato's demiurge / the Nu, who orders the movement of the air, which is what creates the other elements, which he then orders into the cosmos and life as we know it. This tracks.
Yeah, this is actually an interesting theory, especially on what I'm reading right now. Because as Pherecydes points out, and I'm wondering, this is probably why you sent the super chat, Pherecydes is saying Kronos is the one who created everything. And actually, believe it or not, later on, Ovid's Metamorphosis basically says that Saturn created everything. Saturn in the Golden Age started everything. And like paradise, like Genesis' paradise, was the golden age of Saturn. So this was an idea that was permeating back then, that Kronos was the first god who starts everything. Or the nous, as you say, the mind of all this. He's the first mind, the first nous. So that is very interesting that you actually notice that. I think there's something to that for sure. Let's see. Let's go back to Pherecydes. So, thank you for the super chat, by the way. So, Kronos and the other to the serpent. So you have the Kronos and his angels, or his messengers, and then you have Ophianos and the daimons. And recounted their challenge in combats, and they made an accord according to whichever ones of them fell into ocean would be defeated. And it's interesting because what happens at the end of Revelation? The losers get thrown into the lake of fire. Well, this is this stacks up to what you find in Pherecydes. While those expelled and be defeated would possess the heavens, what happens at the end of Revelation? The kingdom of heaven ushers in. So the winner gets the kingdom of heaven, the loser gets the lake of fire. That is an old motif that goes all the way back to 600 BC in Pherecydes. Pherecydes reports that Saturn was crowned before everyone. Chalcis, again, below that portion is the portion of Tartarus, the pit. And that term is used in the New Testament by Jesus, Tartarus. The daughters of Boreas, the Harpies, Thyala, the storm, guarded it. It is there that Zeus banishes any of the gods when he commits an outrage. For one finds Dis, Zen, Den, Zos, and Zes in Pherecydes according to the appropriate declension. So Dis, Zane, Dane, Zos, and Zes are all the same word in different declensions. Very interesting. The table of offerings, they call it. So, and this is interesting too. Unless we say that the moon nourishes the men who live on it by sending ambrosia, that's the food of immortality, to them every day, as ancient Pherecydes thinks that the gods themselves are fed. That's the end of this one. Okay, so that's the end of Pherecydes. Yeah, I think Pherecydes is fascinating. All right, now, the next one we got to get to. We got to get to, let's see. Pythagoras is a big deal. We got to get to Pythagoras because he becomes the face of the Pre-Socratics in a lot of ways, and he's heavily cited by Plato. The Platonists are pretty much coming out of the Pythagorean tradition, and I think monotheism comes out of the critique of Pythagoras, which is Xenophanes, and I'll get to that in a second. So let's go to Pythagoras real quick. Let's do that. So Pythagoras, everyone knows who Pythagoras is. Pythagorean theorem, you've heard of it. He's big into mathematics, but he's also a mystical sage, if you want to call it that. So before I get to Pythagoras, I want to play a clip. Oh, I have the wrong thing on my screen right now. My bad. I'm going to real quick. I'm going to pull up. I want to play a clip real quick. So from one of my videos, and then I'm going to come back and do Pythagoras. And I'm just going to, because I want to show something that I talked about in my video about Yahweh. So just give me 1 second. I'll pull that up. And I actually know there's a few mistakes I made in this video. This is from like 4 years ago, and I'll address it if I see it, if it comes up. But 1 second. Okay, so here we go. It's muted, isn't it?
He all of a sudden had the monotheistic approach to theology from these Israelites. I think the answer to this question is very simple. The popular philosophy of any given time period is going to dramatically affect...
Hold on, can you hear that? Were you able to just hear that just now? Just want to make sure before I play this for like more than 10 seconds. And ideal. Just let me know if you guys heard that video just now. Homer farted. Anyone, can you guys hear that part of when I played the video? Can you guys hear it? Yes? Okay, good. Okay, good. All right, I'm just going to play this for a couple seconds, and then we'll talk about it.
The theology of that period. For example, we see how much the Stoics and Epicureans influenced the Middle Platonists, who in turn influenced Christian theologians and church fathers of the 2nd century. But what about the 3rd century BCE? At the time when the Pentateuch was being put together, Platonism was on the rise, along with Aristotle's school of the Peripatetic and the skepticism of Pyrrho. These philosophers, with the resources of the great library of Alexandria, with access to thinkers like Zoroaster, the Magian, and Heraclitus, some of the earliest thinkers to exhibit monotheistic or skeptic tendencies against the dogmas and superstitions of the day.
Initiation here into the ancient mysteries, so honored among men, mocks holiness. They raise their voices at stone idols, as a man might argue with his doorpost.
Yeah, so Heraclitus, man, he was rough on some of these cults that were in his time period. He thought stone idols were nonsense. That was like the idea that you would like worship an idol was nonsense. And he thought like this is like what you find in the Hebrew Bible, for example. You can see some of these Greeks hold these ideas that you find in Judaism later on. This is one of the big arguments Gomurka makes about pre-Socratic thought, and especially when you get to Xenophanes. You'll see him. Xenophanes is basically he's a non-Jewish practicing of Judaism. That's the best way to describe him.
They have understood so little of the gods.
Thales was the first master of the school of Athens. He was known for traveling to see the greatest minds of his day in Egypt and Babylon. He taught that water was the first principle, arche, in which life can spring from. Thales believed in an uncreated being who crafts physis, nature, which all things are from. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Notice how water is the first thing that is formed. This is in line with the philosophical thinking of Thales in the school of Athens. It is also possible the Egyptian sages or magi like Zoroaster believed in something similar. Herodotus describes Thales as a Phoenician by remote descent. When Thales died, Anaximander became the second master, who is said to be the teacher of Pythagoras, who brought these teachings to Italy. Anaximander is the earliest use of the word Apeiron, or infinite, limitless, to designate the original first principle of the cosmos, uncreated, beginning of all things. The first philosopher to employ in philosophical context the term arche, which until then had meant beginning or origin. Anaximander called this something by the name physis, or nature. Next after him was Anaximenes, third master of the school of Athens, from the Milesian school.
That's actually one of my mistakes that I made. I kept calling it the school of Athens. That's an anachronistic way to talk about it. They're actually the school of Miletus. They're not even in Athens yet. So that was a little error on my part.
Was a material monist who sought to discover the arche, the beginning or origin, the one underlying basis of all things. Anaximenes also believed that air was divine. He identified air with the breath of life, and thus the soul as well as the air and the atmosphere. Only a single sentence-long quote by Anaximenes survives. Just as our soul, being air, holds us together, so pneuma and air encompass and guard the whole world. This is the first extant source to use the word pneuma, or breath. Genesis 2:7 says, "The Lord God formed man from dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life," the pneuma. And the
super chat. Was Pythagoras a monist or dualist?
Oh, thank you for the super chat. I'll get right to that in 1 second. Thank you for that super chat.
The man became a living being. Genesis lines up perfectly with the philosophy of the Pre-Socratics. After Anaximenes, you get Heraclitus, who claims to announce an everlasting logos, or word, according to which all things are one, in some sense. Opposites are necessary for life, but they are unified in a system of balanced exchanges. The world itself consists of a law-like interchange of elements, symbolized by fire. And Anaximenes is criticized by Parmenides, who starts the school of the Eleatics. He is called the father of logic. It is during this time that superstitions and dogmas are being challenged. Anaxagoras would be the next master of Athens, and his innovative theory of physical nature is encapsulated in the phrase, a portion of everything in everything. Its primary expression is found in the following difficult fragment. And since the portions of both the large and the small.
Okay, so I just wanted to catch up to Pythagoras. You got the news. I wanted to catch up to Pythagoras real quick. And, there was a super chat. The super chat was from Tracy. Good question, Tracy. So I don't know. I mean, like, he has a lot of dualist. Is he a dualist or a monist? Is a good question. And I think people would debate that, because he's from the school. He's from the same tradition of the material monist, where there's an arche, there's a single origin point, and a single perfect monistic creator. But then it splits off into a dyad, and then you have good and evil, and then you have equal forces. You have, that are constantly, like, that's Pythagoras would be both. And this is why I think the Neoplatonist triad is like a way to solve the problem of monism and dualism, where you have a one that's there in the beginning, and then it emanates a dyad. And that dyad is like what accounts for all the dualistic things we see, good and evil, male and female, hot and cold, and all that stuff. So I think Pythagoras falls into that camp that accounts both ways. So it's both. He's a monist and a dualist, and also what's the word? A triadist. I think he's a triadist. And he thinks everything's number anyway. That's what we're about to see. You're about to see that. Let me show you that right now, actually. This will kind of answer your question, actually. Because it's sort of hard to answer that question, but I can show you just by digging into his text, if that makes sense. So, all right, Pythagoras. Did Pythagoras write anything? No. Apparently not. Oh, we got a super chat in the house. Witch Doctor dropped 5. Thank you, Witch Doctor. Friend of the channel.
At underscore Witch Doctor dropped $5 super chat. Have you heard of Ivory Armed Helen? Everyone hit the like, thumbs up emoji.
Ivory Armed Ellen. Armed Helen. No. What is that? Our Ivory Armed Helen. Let's see. Ivory is most famously associated with Hera, though it is occasionally joined to the other noble women like Helen of Troy. The face that launched 1,000 ships, fair hair. So, like, and one of her epithets, is that what you're basically getting at? Yeah. I mean, is that what you were saying? What am I showing on the screen? I'm showing my window, aren't I? Okay, so I can see the chat right now. So, Witch Doctor, what exactly was it from? Talking about Helen. Oh, Manny brought it up? Yeah. That's interesting. I'll look into it. I think I've heard the epithet before, but something I'll look into. I'm not like totally familiar with it off the top of my head, to be honest. But anyways, yeah. So, let me see if I can. Do I have my screen popped up? Yes. All right. So, Pythagoras. Now, this is written down from, I believe, Diogenes Laertius wrote this. I think, or is this Herodotus? Maybe Herodotus. Some people, yeah, this is Herodotus. Some people claim erroneously that Pythagoras did not leave behind even one written treatise. In any case, Heraclitus, the natural philosopher, almost shouts when he says, and I think it's damaged, but he said that Pythagoras, at the beginning of his treatise on nature, Ion of Chios, in his Triagmoi, Pythagoras composed some poems and attributed them to Orpheus. Huh, that's interesting. Until the time of Philolaus, it was impossible to know anything about Pythagorean doctrine. It was he alone who published those celebrated 3 books which Plato ordered to be bought for 100 minas. Wow. For there was no writing by Pythagoras himself, and Lysis and Archippus, who had escaped after the Pythagorean residence at Croton was burned down, as well as those who went into exile, preserved from his philosophy nothing more than a few embers that were faint and hard to understand. Claudianus, on the state of the soul, Pythagoras' opinion, since he himself wrote nothing down, must be sought from his successors. Herodotus says, the Egyptians are the first to have said the following too, that a human soul is immortal, and when the body has been destroyed, it enters each time into another living being that is being born. And after it has gone through all the animals, terrestrial, marine, and winged, it enters once again into human body that is being born. And it completes this cycle 3,000 years. There are some Greeks who have professed this doctrine, some of them earlier, others later, as though it has been their own. I know their names, but I do not write them down. So this is the doctrine of metempsychosis, or what we call today reincarnation. The Greeks were huge into this. This is not just some Eastern doctrine. This was big in the Greek thought and Pythagorean thought as well. Even some early Christians adopted transmigration, or metempsychosis. Transmigration is called. So Porphyry writes, what has become the best known of all is the first that he said that the soul is immortal. This is huge doctrine in Christianity, by the way, Judaism. And that it passes into other species of animals, and also that what is born again sometime after determinate periods of time, and that there's absolutely nothing new. And that it must, so this is actually taken from Parmenides, by the way. Must be thought that things that are born and sold belong to the same race. I'm just looking at the Greek real quick. For that Pythagoras seems to have been the first to have introduced the doctrines into Greece. Pseudo-Aristotle writes, Pythagoras was the first who tried to speak about virtue, but he did not do so correctly. For in referring the virtues to numbers, he did not establish an appropriate way to study the virtues. For justice is not a number equal times equal. Square number. Apollodorus, the mathematician, says Pythagoras offered a hecatomb in sacrifice because he had discovered that the side subtending the right angle and the right triangle is equal in power to the sides containing the right angle. The squares on the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares on the sides. In right-angled triangles, the square on each side, on the side subtending the right angle, the hypotenuse, is equal to the squares on each of the sides containing the right angle. Euclid. Huh. Xenophanes says that Pythagoras discovered that the music intervals are not generated independently of number. Pythagoras was the first to use the term philosophy, philosophion, and to call himself a philosopher. Huh. So Pythagoras had the habit of saying sometimes, all things resemble number. This is where we get gematria from. And other times of swearing this oath, which was in greatest conformity with nature. Know by the man who bequeathed to our very self the tetractys, the source that holds the roots of ever-flowing nature. This is a huge, this is some esoteric shit right here. The tetractys, the source that holds the roots of ever-flowing nature. Meaning the man who bequeathed Pythagoras, and by tetractys, a certain number composed out of the 4 first numbers produces the most perfect number, 10. For 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 10. And that is, this is in line with the golden ratio, by the way. So the golden ratio, if you, here, let me do something. Let me look up the golden ratio for a second. 1 second. Golden ratio. So the golden ratio, which is, it gets attributed to Pythagoras, by the way, this idea. But anyways, the thing I wanted to show you is there's a golden mean, right? And all you can look at all the temples in Greece have a construction based on this, and it's the construction, a construction of the dodecahedron and the icosahedron. And believe it or not, I think I have his work here somewhere. I can probably pull it up. Grab it. Actually, I can grab it. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Okay, so the construction of the temples are based on the golden ratio. This is called the divine proportion, and it was a collaboration between Luca Pacioli and Leonardo da Vinci. And this is not his discovery. He's going back to the ancient Greeks, and he's discovering that the golden ratio is how we should do architecture. And this is what happens in the Renaissance. All of a sudden, new architecture, you can see like how to build columns are rediscovered based on the golden ratio. And there's a huge renaissance of artworks based on the golden ratio. You can see he's got all the golden ratio shapes in here, all the secrets of the Greeks and how to build beautiful temples and churches. Leonardo da Vinci has it all in here. Even the alphabet, not the Greek alphabet, the Latin alphabet was based on the golden ratio, he says. the way the Latin alphabet is made, and there's a perfect way to do every single letter. He was basically saying every letter in the alphabet. He points out, and I'm trying to see where's the one where he shows. He's got. It's in here somewhere. Damn, there's a lot in here. Wait, where is it? Oh, yeah. Here we go. Like the front of a temple, the front of like a building has the basic structure of the golden ratio embedded in it. That's why when you look at a building like that, you think to yourself, wow, that looks beautiful. It's because it's based on a specific ratio that is pleasing to the eye. It's all over nature. It's beautiful. And it even says in Latin, Hieroslymes, which is Jerusalem, and it says Porta Templi Dominici Dicta Speciosa. So this is like he's got the black and white floor tiles that you find like later Freemasonry. So you can see these ideas they find its origin in Pythagoras. That's what I'm trying to get at. These ubiquitous ideas in esoterica find their way back to Pythagoras. That's what I'm getting at. So to go back to there's a super chat. Back in Pan Dionysus in the house. Thank you for the super chat.
At Vacan_Pan_Danny B's dropped $10 super chat. Neil just got to say I love you and your work, brother.
Thank you.
As a monist, the furthering of another's mind is the furthering of our own. Collective consciousness and subconscious dreamscape connection.
As a monist, the furthering of another's mind is the furthering of our own. Damn. Collective consciousness and subconsciousness dreamscape connection. Damn, that was fire. Yeah, well said. I mean, I want to do a whole video on Carl Jung's collective unconscious. That's a whole deep rabbit hole in itself. The idea that we all are tapped into some sort of collective consciousness, that to me is like one of the most fascinating ideas in the world, because it's also highly related to what we're talking about now, which is monism. Material monism and spiritual monism and collective conscious monism, I guess you would call it. Whatever you want to call it, right? All right, so I want to show you, this is what I wanted to show you, this golden ratio. Because he talks about the tetractys. And the way he describes the number 10 being the perfect number actually has some sort of relationship with how the golden ratio is played out in number. So here it is right here. 1, it goes 0, 1, and then 1 plus, you start off with 0, and you have to give yourself a miracle. So this goes back to creation. We need a miracle. We need a God that's always there, that's not created. We need creation out of nothing. Creation ex nihilo. If you grant, this is what Aristotle would say, if you just grant me one unmoved mover, I can explain the entire cosmos. In the same way it's played out in mathematics. So this all has harmony except for right here. 1 plus 0 is 1. So you get 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. But think about this. How did you get to 1? You need the 1 to be an always existing miracle from the chaos of 0. 0 is chaos. 1 is unchangeable, unchanging. Think about it like this. 0 is Heraclitus' flux. It's chaos. It's the waters, the fiery waters of eternal hell. The one is the perfect, unchanging, fixed state of being. So you go from becoming to being one, and it's eternal, and it's fixed, and it's unmoving, and it's always at rest. But so then that's how you start everything, and then how do you get from the next to the dyad? Well, 1 plus 1 is 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 2 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. 8 plus 5 is 13. 13 plus 8 is 21. And it goes on and on and on for infinity. So when Pythagoras is talking about the tetractys, what he's saying basically, it's not exactly the golden mean, but it's parallel to it. So it's like the symbol, which is the monad. Here, I think I could show you what the tetractys looks like. Pythagorean tetractys. It's the triangle. It looks like the Zelda triangle. Oh, I found one that has like a. Oh, you know what? I could just look up. I can just show you the screen. I think there's a Wikipedia page for it. Okay, cool. I'll just go to that. It's my first time even looking at this, so I have no idea what it is. Can you see it? So look at, as I just pointed out, to the tetractys of the decad. It's a triangular figure consisting of 10 points arranged in 4 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so you have the 1, and then the dyad, and then the triad, and then the quadrant, the tetrad. I mean, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you get this perfect 10 number. The number 10 comes out of it. So it's not the golden ratio, but it's like it runs parallel to it. It's a different kind of spiral. It's not the same spiral. It's a different kind of spiral. But it's related in a lot of ways. There's a lot of relationship with especially right here where it talks about that the Pythagorean musical system was based on the tetractys, as the rows can be read as the ratios 4 to 3, perfect fourth, 3 to 2, perfect fifth, 2 to 1, octave, forming the basic intervals of the Pythagorean scales. That is, Pythagorean scales are generated from combining pure fourths in a relation, pure fifths in a relation, and the simple ratios of 1, 1, 2, 1, and so forth. Kabbalists are heavily dependent on this. It's not the other way around. It's not this. Pythagoras is not borrowing this from Judaism. It's later Kabbalistic Jews drawing from the Pythagorean thought. This is when they start getting into gematria and stuff like that. But you can see how deep this goes. This is the tree of life. This is everything. This is big. This is the basis of reality we're talking about. So, all right. So now I think I explained that. Let's keep going. Pythagoras. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 equals 10. That's the perfect number. And it says, after these, Pythagoras transformed the kind of philosophy regarding geometry by giving it the form of a free discipline, considering its principles from the origin and investigating its propositions independently of matter in accordance with the intelligible. He who also discovered the study of the rationals and the arrangement of cosmic figures. Pythagoras was the first to call what surrounds all things cosmos because of the order that is found there. I love this one right here. Pythagoras was the first to say that the morning star and the evening star are one and the same. Phosphoron and Hesperon are one and the same. Ton, Apeiron. So there's one Lucifer, there's one light bringer, and that's Lucifer. So all these things, acousmatic, are divided into three kinds. For some of them indicate what a thing is, others what something is most of all, and others what should or should not do. Trying to just see if there's anything here that's worth reading. I think that's it for Pythagoras for now. Pythagorean, after having indicated these symbols called Pythagorean that seem to us worth mentioning, and that the present a protreptic genre, we have decided to provide the exegesis of them that is suitable for an exhortation. For if one did not choose these symbols in order to explain them and to supply them with serious exegesis, these statements would seem to readers to be full of stupidity and idle chatter, ridiculous and worthy of old women. What are the islands of the blessed? The sun and the moon. What is the oracle of Delphi? The tetractys, which is the harmony in which the sirens sing. Those that indicate what is something is most of all, for example, what is the most just thing? Thuane, sacrifice. What is the wisest thing? Arithmos, number. And secondly, deuteron, pragmacy. Secondly, the man who gave the things their names. What is the wisest among us? Iatrike, medicine, or healing, I guess. It's not even the word, I don't even use the word pharmacon, it uses the word iatrike, which is healing, healing with medicine, I guess you would say. The most beautiful, harmonia. It's got that rough breathing, harmonia. The strongest thing, nome, intelligence. The best, eudaimonia. That's the word Aristotle borrows from this doctrine. The Ariston, eudaimonia, the happiness. So what is the truest thing that has ever been said? That men are wicked. Those acousmatic statements that say what one should or should not do are of this kind. For example, one must make children, for one must leave behind in place of oneself servants of God. Ton theon. He uses that same ton theon. One must put a shoe on one's right foot first. One must not use the main streets, nor soak oneself in a vessel of lustral water, nor bathe in a public bath. For in all these cases it is uncertain whether people who are sharing them are pure. Wow. That's pretty advanced knowledge of germs. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, maybe. Do not help someone put down a burden, for one should not be the reason for one's exerting oneself, but help to lift it up. So you can see there's a lot of proverbs here, Pythagoras, that are attributed to Pythagoras. So, all right. The next one I want to get to, we did Heraclitus, we did Pherecydes, we did Parmenides. I wanted to do Xenophanes. I have two of them up here, so I'm just going to click one off. We did Thales. We did Anaximenes. And then I also wanted to do Empedocles and Xenophanes. This is the one I wanted to get to right now. So this is where to me, this is where monotheism starts. Xenophanes is the first monotheist in a truest sense, in my personal opinion. He's very critical of Homer. You can see Plato is drawing from Xenophanes in a lot of ways. Before I get there, though, I want to do a quick play a clip again, real quick, and I'll be right back to talk about it. And I'm gonna play the same clip that I just played before, which is, let me see. Yeah, right here. Let me see. Window capture. Okay. Whoops. Unmute.
One of his students would be Archelaus, the next master of the school, who was also at this time a staunch skeptic and natural philosopher. He's the one who teaches Socrates, and Socrates is the teacher of Plato. Plato would be the one to unify the entire base of knowledge that Athens had been accumulating from the world for the past 200 years, and bring them into his dialogues through the character of Socrates, who was his teacher. Plato wrote a dialogue called Timaeus, an exposition of cosmology, in which the demiurge, the agent who takes the pre-existing materials of chaos, itself consists of a law-like interchange of elements symbolized by fire. And Anaximenes is criticized by Parmenides, who starts the school of the Eleatics. He and Empedocles is able to unify the leading theories of the day. Anaxagoras introduced the concept of the nous.
All right, I just needed to go somewhere for a second. Or 10 to something real quick. I'm back. Okay, so Xenophanes, in my opinion, this is where monotheism takes off, in my opinion. So here's what I want to show you. And he goes back to like 5th century BC, right before Plato, I think. Let me see. Right before Plato. Let me just get exact dates. He is 570 to 478. So he's mostly 6th century BC, but he lived till he was 92. Damn. He lived a long time, dude. Damn. And it says like he's later philosophers such as the Eleatics and the Pyrrhonists saw Xenophanes as the founder of their doctrines. He interpreted his work in their terms of doctrines. Okay, so let's read this. He wrote in dactylic hexameter, which is interesting because he's critical of Homer, but he's using Homer's dactylic hexameter. That's like a rapper using another rapper's beat to make fun of them. That's literally what's going on here. That's so crazy. Elegaic couplets and yams against Hesiod and Homer, deriding what they said about the gods. He himself also performed a rhapsode in his own compositions. He also composed poetry on the foundations of Colophon and on the colonization of Elea in Italy, 2,000 verses. That's interesting, because that's where the Eleatic school takes off. His satires, known under the title Mockeries, here's some fragments. Xenophanes, the natural philosopher, composed mockeries in verses. Proclus, commentary on Hesiod's works and days. Why do we need to speak of these? Polemicist, Archilochus, Hipponics, Timocrates, Metratus. When Xenophanes is said to have composed absurd mockeries against all the philosophers and poets because of a certain mean-spiritedness he felt toward the contemporary philosophers and poets. I'm telling you, this is like a huge... This is like where Plato Plato wanted to figure out how he can unify Xenophanes with the other Greeks that he's dissing. Like, I think this is what's going on in Plato's head. The mockeries were composed, first of all, not by Xenophanes, but by Homer. In them, he mocks the Silene, Pherecydes himself, and Pherecydes mocks the best man. Xenophanes was the first author of a discourse worthy of mention that came to the Greeks playfully rebuking the audacities of other people and at the same time demonstrating his own piety on the idea that God knows the truth. Theos men hoide tein elethein. God knows the truth. But opinions extends over all men. Dokos. Like doctrines. God knows the truth, but doctrines are, are all over the place. So why is he a monotheist, so you're asking? Well, you just probably got a clue right there. He just said God knows. He only said one God there. Let's keep going. He says, the mistaken beliefs about the gods rivaled Homer after his death. Homer and Hesiod, this is a quote from his text. Homer and Hesiod have attributed to the gods all things that among men are sources of blame and censure, thieving, committing adultery, and deceiving each other. Like, he sounds like a Christian, dude. Sounds like a Judeo-Christian monotheist. In this. According to Xenophanes of Colophon, Homer and Hesiod sang of many lawless deeds committed by the gods, thieving, committing adultery, deceiving each other. Since from the beginning all have learned according to Homer. But mortals think that the gods are born, and having clothing, voice, and bodily frame just like theirs. The Ethiopians say that their gods are snub-nosed and dark-skinned. The Thracians say that they have blue eyes and red hair. He's pointing out that these people they think of gods as their own selves. They have no idea what God is. But if oxen or lions had hands or could draw with their hands and create works like men, then horses would draw shapes of gods like the horses, and oxen like oxen. And they would make the same kinds of bodies, and each one possessed its own bodily frame. See, you can see the pre-Platonic mindset here, the pre-monotheistic mindset here in Xenophanes. So, Xenophanes of Colophon is the only one among the ancient philosophers to have said that the gods exist, but to have abolished divination completely. Divination being evil. This is the first time you ever see that. And all others approved of divination except for Epicurus. So he's kind of a rational, pious way thinking about God that way. He's a mature way of thinking about God. Listen, here it is right here. Here's the drum roll. That's what you've been waiting for. Xenophanes teaches the God is one and bodiless, and he's a literal monotheist. I've heard people say monotheism never existed anywhere. That Judaism not even monotheistic because it has angels and stuff, and that Zoroastrianism is not monotheistic. Otnism is a monotheistic. But I would say even if you wanted to go down that path and say monotheism doesn't exist, it's all henotheism, Xenophanes was actually the first true monotheist. He says, one God, literally, eis Theos. That's it. And he says right here, hoti eis kai asomatos hotheos. God is one and bodiless. Literally, no body. He's just one. God is one thing. There's not many gods. There's one God. I'm not saying I agree with this. I'm just saying this is what he says. He was probably one of the most hated of the Presocratics for what he's saying here. One God among both gods and humans, the greatest. Megistos. That's one of the titles that Yahweh gets, by the way. in the Septuagint. One God among both gods and humans, the greatest. Neither in bodily frame, similar to mortals, nor in thought. We can't even think of what God is. He's so above us. As a whole he sees, as a whole he thinks, as a whole he hears. Damn. But without any toil by the organ of his mind, Nufrini, he makes all things tremble. He always stays in the same place, not moving at all. It is not fitting that he travel now to one place, now to another. As a whole he sees, and as a whole he hears, and he does not breathe, because he is completely mind, completely nous, and thought, and is eternal. Right here. He is enai nun kai phronesin. And then aidion, eternal. All things are full of God. All things are full. Pantatheu plepe. Pantatheu plepe. All things are full of God. His ears are everywhere. That's monotheism, dude. I don't know how else you can describe this but monotheism. This is like pure monotheism too. And through stones along the whole earth, and in man himself, whatever that he thought that he is, hides in chest. Huh. Hippolytus. The sun comes about every day out of a small fires that are collected together. The earth is unlimited and is surrounded neither by air nor by the heavens, and that there is an unlimited number of suns and moons, and that all things come from earth. You can even see his cosmology is like Old Testament. This is like the firmament cosmology. He's an Old Testament mind, it seems like. He said that the sea is salty because of the many mixtures that flow together into it. Xenophanes thinks that the land is mixed with sea, and that time is dissolved by moisture, saying that he has the following proofs. That shells are found inland on the mountains. By the way, isn't that crazy that ancients noticed this way before we did? That the highest mountains have shells. This is people thought because of the Great Flood, but it's actually because way back in time during the ice ages and stuff like that these glaciers like the tectonic plates push mountains up, and you can see that land that used to be underwater is now up in the sky. And he says that in Syracuse, the outlines of fishes and seals are found in quarries. In Paros, the outline of coral in the depths of the stone. And on Malta, marble slabs. All kinds of sea creatures, he says, all this came about when everything was covered by mud long ago, and the outline in the mud dried out. And that human beings are destroyed when the earth deposited in the sea becomes mud, and that then generation begins, and this change happens in the worlds. So he doesn't even say it was a great flood. He's actually more scientific than the average young earth creationist would be. It's pretty crazy. So there's a lot to say about Xenophanes. All of us came about from earth and water, which is kind of true. This is the last page right here. The sun proceeds onward infinitely, but it seems to move in a circle because of the distance. So he's a geocentrist. The sea is the source of the water. Interesting. The last one I wanted to get to tonight, and then I really wanted to talk to the chat a little bit too, because I like this new setup where I can actually just see the chat, where I can look right at the chat. Anaximenes says, compare this to Jeremiah 23. Jeremiah 23, 24. Let's see. Let's do this. Jeremiah 23. Cross Bible. Jeremiah 23. Let me try something real quick. You said Jeremiah 23. Let's see. Okay. Jeremiah 23. I think you said verse 24. Can any hide himself in secret so that I shall not see him? Do not I fill the heaven and earth? Exactly. That's exactly what it is. This is almost as if whoever is writing this is drawing from the doctrine of Xenophanes. Like God fills everything. He's literally inside everything. He's all places at all times. That's the doctrine of Xenophanes, and it's pretty obvious in my opinion. I wanted to get to Empedocles real quick too before I ended up. I don't know if I actually went through Anaximenes and Anaxagoras, but I think we talked about them enough that doesn't really matter. So we can go to Empedocles. Another one of the important pre-Socratics. So let's go back to this to show you what I'm talking about here. So Empedocles, did I even put him on here? Oh, I did. Okay. You can see Empedocles comes, he's like a turning point in this situation. So you have the Eleatic school on one side. You have the school of Miletus on the other side. And they both come from the Ionians. The Eleatics set up in southern Italy, and the Ionians stay over in, Miletus. And they both sort of like give birth to Athens. But anyways, the point is you can see that they split up. And the Eleatic doctrine is heavily inspired by Pythagoras and Parmenides. And then Zeno starts up this school of Elea in southern Italy. And I actually talk about them in my video on Easter, which let me pull that up. It's actually worth me just, instead of me talking about it, I did a lot more research, and it's probably a lot better if I just play that clip on my video where I actually like go through and talk about some of the stuff they did there. So let me see if I can find it. Here we go.
Esther and Ishtar mourn life.
It's from Orphic Incubation. Here it is. All right, so. All right, here it is.
As a god. The famous symbol shared by Asclepius, Eshmon, and Ophiuchus is the symbol of the serpent on the rod, the universal symbol for health and medicine. The priest of Eshmon, as well as Ophiuchus and Asclepius, would be the most educated class of priests, arguably on the entire planet during this time. The pre-Socratics, such as Parmenides and Pythagoras, who were not only well-known philosophers, but also poets, mathematicians, astronomers, biologists, skeptics, psychologists, and most of all, lawgivers. They were well-known worshippers of Apollo and his son Asclepius, and recent archaeology has shown that the schools of Parmenides and Pythagoras in southern Italy were deeply concerned with healing and medicines. In 1958, a series of archaeological discoveries were made and Velia in Italy. The Temple of Apollo, the center for the school of Parmenides, there was a statue that is among the most unique and rarest archaeological finds possibly of all time. The inscription at its base reads, Olus, son of Eukinos, healer, in the year 379. Two more similar inscriptions on statues were discovered. All three had the name Olus, but the fathers' names were different, Ariston and Hieronymus. The dates were also different, 280, 379, and 446. Peter Kingsley, in his book Dark Places of Wisdom, goes in depth on the significance of these inscriptions, saying that the term Olus is associated with an individual devoted to Apollo and signifies a unique aspect of worship dedicated to Apollo Olios, particularly along Anatolia's western coastlines where the Ionians once dwelled, such as Pythagoras, Thales, Heraclitus, and Parmenides. The epithet Olios carries a nuanced duality. Initially, describes
Thank you for the super chat.
attitudes such as lethal, harmful, or severe, acknowledging the darker aspects inherent in every deity. However, the Greeks also interpreted Oulios to mean the one who restores to health. This duality encapsulates Apollo's essence, simultaneously the healer and the destroyer, embodying the capacity to both inflict and cure. Apollyon in Greek means to destroy, but Apollo is a god of healing and restoration. Peter Kingsley has this to say in his book, Dark Places of Wisdom. You find that to them heroes weren't just figures in some mythical past. For them, the heroic ideal is something that had to be lived in the present. The aim of one's life, the life of a wise man, was to follow the way of the hero to live his ordeals, his sufferings, his transformation. That's what provided the spiritual purpose in the map of their existence. You can still see how this imitation of the hero was adapted by Christianity to become the imitation of Christ. Kingsley, one of the great classicists and historians of our time, writes that these very Velians, from the school of Parmenides and Pythagoreans from the school of Croton, all who can technically be considered religious Orphics, built temples to Apollo in the southern coast of Italy, and at these places they conducted rituals of medically induced incubation.
This is the part that I wanted to show you.
Parmenides set up a temple in Velia where the rites of incubation were performed, and the initiates would spend days or even weeks in a dark cave under the supervision of a magus and report his dreams to them for conducting research. It all sounds bizarre, but this was early science in the ancient world.
I was very scared to
Compare these rituals with the myths of Orpheus descending into the underworld to perform his music in the presence of the king and queen of Hades in order that he may raise his dead wife from the grave. Pythagoras, departing his native Samos in Ionia, lived in Egypt for 12 years, and then Babylon for another 12 years.
At Vacan_Pan_Danny B's dropped $5 super chat. Can you talk more about Thames and Dionysus and monism? Zeus Dionysus. Aeon Cronus. How Orphic mysteries evolve. Thanks, brother.
Definitely. I'm definitely jumping on that next. I want to finish this this part right here, and this is because this is crazy. This is the school of Parmenides. This is what the Eleatics are doing. They're into medicine. They're into healing. They're into incubation and the Orphic myth of descent and return.
Finally, after 24 years of education amongst the Chaldeans and Magi, he set sail for Italy, carried with him the traditions of the advanced Persian and Egyptian knowledge, including methods of incubation and practices for journeying to the underworld, demonstrating his deep reverence for the underworld goddess Persephone, who descended and returned from Hades He transformed his new residence at Croton, Italy, into a medical sanctuary in the name of Apollo, showcasing his devotion. The ritual catabasis was no longer just mythology. This was reality to them. Xenophanes, student of Pythagoras in southern Italy, taught that God is one, supreme among gods and men, and not like men.
There's the quote right there from Xenophanes. God is one.
Either in mass or mind. We can see the obvious roots of Judeo-Christian thought within the fragments of these pre-Socratic orphics.
A oneness of being that is uncreated, unbegotten, alone begotten, whole, unmoved, unending, indestructible, homogeneous, continuous, contiguous, that it abides in one position, is indivisible, has always been as it is, and never can be any different.
These are Orphic, Peripatetic, Platonist, and Pythagorean philosophers who are also trained in medicine and history, as well as religious matters. Pyrrho, the founder of philosophical skepticism, traveled with Alexander the Great to Babylon and India, and engaged with the brightest minds from the Brahmins, Buddhists, as well as the Magi, and brought these ideas back to Egypt for the newly built Library of Alexandria. It is not impossible, in my opinion, and it's actually likely that Christianity draws some of its influence from Buddhist and Taoist thought.
Okay. All right. So, Empedocles now. Time to jump into Empedocles. So, as I pointed out, Empedocles represents a turn towards a different school of thought that produces not only some of what Plato gets into, but relativism, the sophist, come out of this school. So it's sort of, he comes out of a critique of the Pythagorean school, just like Xenophanes does. And you'll see. Let's read some of his stuff. His work on nature and purification extends 5,000 lines. He wrote in hexameters on the nature of things that are, 2 books. Let's see what he wrote. Here it is. Friends, philoi, or, beloveds, you who dwell in the great city beside the yellow Archegos. Think of Empedocles like a Jesus figure. Like he's out there, he's got his disciples around him, and then he just goes off. You who dwell in this great city, you Archegos, on the lofty citadel, who care for good deeds, respectful harborers and strangers, inexperienced in wickedness, I greet you, for you am an immortal God, no longer mortal. He's literally saying, I'm an immortal God, no longer mortal. I go among you, honored as I am seen, crowned with ribbons and blooming garlands. Whenever I arrive at these in the flourishing cities, I am venerated by men and by women. They follow me, thousands of them, asking, where is the road to benefit? Some of them desire prophecies, others ask to hear. For illness of all kinds, a healing utterance, pierced for a long time by terrible pains. But why do I insist upon these things as though I were doing something great? To be superior to mortals, men destructible in many ways? Friends, I know that truth is in the words that I shall speak out, but it is very irksome for men that cause distrust, the impulse of persuasion for the mind. For if for the sake of one of the ephemeral beings, immortal muse, you took care that our worries traverse your thought, stand once again by my side as I pray to you, Calliope, while I present an excellent speech about the blessed gods. So this is not a monotheist at all. Happy he who possesses the wealth of divine organs of thought. Wretched he who cares for an obscure doctrine about the gods. It is impossible to approach it, to attain with our eyes, or to grasp it with hands, which is how the greatest highway of persuasion penetrates the mind of men. There is an oracle of necessity, and that's Anakes. The ancient decree, that's necessity. Anakes. An ancient decree of the gods, eternal, sealed by broad oaths. Whenever by crime someone pollutes his limbs by murder, whoever commits a fault by perjuring himself on oath, the divinities, the daimones, who have received as a long life, must wander thrice 10,000 seasons far from the blessed ones, growing during this time in different forms of mortal beings, exchanging the painful paths of life, for the force of the aether chases them toward the sea. The sea spits them out towards the earth's surface, the earth toward the rays of the bright sun. And he, the sun, hurls them, so Helios hurls them into the eddies of the aether. Each one receives from one another, but all hate them. Of them I too am one, an exile from the divine and a wanderer, I who relied on insane strife. Plutarch says this on Isis. Empedocles says that the daimones are punished for whatever fault and offenses they commit, until having been punished in this way and have been purified, they once again take up their natural location and rank. Like fallen angels, right? Him, the exiled daimon, neither do the covered abodes of aegis-bearing Zeus receive, nor in any way the dense place of Hades. For as for me, once I was already both a youth and a girl, a bush and a bird, and a sea-leaping, voyaging fish. I wept and wailed, and I saw an unaccustomed place, far from what honor and from what abundance of bliss. We have arrived under the roof of this cave. Alas, wretched race of mortals, miserable race, from such kind of strife and from such groans are you born. Of living beings he produced dead forms, proceeding to exchange, enveloping an unfamiliar cloak of flesh, man enveloping earth. The earthly was there, and the far-sighted sun eyes, bloody combat and calm-seeing harmoniae. Beauty and ugliness, quickness and slowness, lovely infallibility and black-fruited indistinctness, growing and perishing, sleep and awakens, and movement and immovability, many-crowned excellence. Pherecydes in utterance. Grace hates intolerable necessity. A joyless place where murder, rage, and tribes of the other death divinities wander in darkness along the meadow of destruction. There was neither some Ares for them as a god, nor tumult, nor Zeus, king, nor Kronos, nor Poseidon, but Cypris, queen. She it was whose favor they won with pious images, painted animals, and artfully scented perfumes, sacrifices of unmixed myrrh and fragrant incense, casting onto the ground libations of blonde honey. The altar was not drenched with the unmixed blood of bulls, but this was among men the greatest pollution, to rip out the life and devour the noble limbs. All were tame and gentle to human beings, wild beasts and birds, and benevolence blazed forth. But what is lawful for all, through the wide ruling aether, it extends continuously and through the boundless light. Cicero says, Pythagoras and Empedocles assert that there is a single legal condition for all living beings, and they proclaim it inexpiable punishments await those who have done violence to an animal. Wow, he's very anti-sacrifice. Will you not desist from evil-sounding murderer? Do you not see that you are devouring each other in the carelessness of your mind? The father, lifting up his own son, who has changed shape, cuts his throat with a prayer. Fool that he is! The others are at a loss while they sacrifice the suppliant. Let's see what we got. Nice. Bakken, Pan, Dionysus in the house again.
At Bakken_Pan_Danny B's dropped $2 super chat. Fragrant incense.
Cannabis.
Common in Sibyls.
Oh, yeah. It's in quite a few sources, actually. Perfect. Well said. Thank you for that super chat. And ripping out their life to devour the flesh of their dear ones. And so, driven by mad, terrible crimes, you will never rest your heart from a dreadful sufferings. Wretched, completely wretched, keep your hands away from beans. Okay, so you can see his attitude towards, he's critical of the sacrificial paradigm of Greek religion. Sacrifice was everywhere. In Greek religion, sacrifice was everything. You sacrifice animals to the gods. That's the way it is. That's the way it's always been. That's just, he seems to rally against this idea. But he's not a monotheist like Xenophanes was. He thinks the gods, he talks about the gods and their roles in the cosmos and in the terrestrial daimons. So you can see Empedocles is going in another direction. That's why I have the arrow coming through Pythagoras to Xenophanes to Empedocles, and then you can see it goes into two different directions after that. It goes into the sophists in one direction who don't even care about anything except for relativism, and they can just make arguments based on whatever's in them, like whatever they want, basically. And I can see Empedocles being somewhat the father of that tradition. He's sort of going on his feels, if you think about it. But the Eleatics is what produces the school of Socrates. We got another super chat in the house.
At Smillstill dropped $5 super chat. Zoroaster was also anti-sacrifice. See the Lament of the Cow.
Yes.
It is just a question of whether Empedocles influenced Zoroaster or vice versa.
Yeah, that's a good question. When was Zoroaster around? I would probably place him, let's see, because Empedocles is 490 to 430. So I would say Zoroaster was right before him. I'd say Zoroaster would be right around. Zoroaster might be right before Heraclitus, actually. Right, or contemporary with Heraclitus. And you can see I have an arrow from Heraclitus to Empedocles too. I think his ideas shape Empedocles as well. Notice how there's not just one arrow going in one direction. There are multiple directions. This took me like 2 hours to make this list. I had to think hard about this. Because these people they teach they're all learning from each other, and there's like for example, Heraclitus might be taught from Pythagoras at the same time as being taught by Anaximenes, and at the same time Xenophanes. Like they all kind of teach. They're all debating each other. They're all kind of going about in their ideas influence each other. There's like not just one teacher and a bunch of students. It's not like school today. This is more engaging in debates going on. So let's see. Empedocles. Let's end on Empedocles. So who is he? Well, I just want to show you what the Encyclopedia of Philosophy says real quick before I move on. So, Empedocles, philosopher and poet, most important of the philosophers working before Socrates, and a poet of outstanding ability, great influence upon later poets such as Lucretius, who, by the way, is an atomist. Super chat. Keep lighting me up, guys. I love it.
At Cozy dropped $5 super chat. Which of these figures in your mind have a corpus of work that is the most intact? Consider the size and the integrity of texts available.
That is a great fucking question, dude. So if I pull up my list again. Now, if we're not talking about, obviously, like Homer and Hesiod would win. Homer would win, obviously. But if we're not talking about, we're talking about the pre-Socratic philosophers and not the poets, then I would have to go with, it's a tough question. Who's the most preserved here? It's not Pythagoras. Heraclitus is pretty well preserved. I mean, I shouldn't say that. We have a lot from Heraclitus, but it's all over the place. So it's not well preserved. There's just a lot of fragments that are, when you put it together, you get quite a bit. Parmenides, his whole poem on nature. So I would say Parmenides. Parmenides is the answer. He's the one who's preserved. We have the most of his works. We have his whole entire poem on nature, or the journey to the goddess. So that for that reason alone, I would go with Parmenides. Parmenides is pretty well preserved in that sense. But then again, we just read a lot from Empedocles. So there was a lot there going on in Empedocles too. Pherecydes, we have his Theogony. So there's a good chunk there. But I still think Parmenides would win. Parmenides would win. He's the most well preserved. Okay, so pull this back up again. So I just want to go to his his cosmology. That's what I wanted to do. So Empedocles posits two cosmic forces which work upon the elements in both creative and destructive ways. These he personifies philia, love, a force of attraction. It's funny, he doesn't call it eros. You would think he would call it eros, but he doesn't. He calls it philia. Interesting, right? A force of attraction and combination, and strife, nikos, a force of repulsion and separation. Whether these cosmic forces are to be envisaged in simply mechanistic terms, as descriptions of the way things happen, or as expressions of eternal properties of the elements, or as external forces that act upon the elements, is not clear. It is also unclear whether the two forces are to be seen as impersonal, mechanistic, physical forces, or as intelligent divinities. This is the question I was actually asking. That act in purposeful ways in creation and destruction. Evidence can be found for all these interpretations. What is clear is that these two forces are engaged in an internal battle for domination for the cosmos, and they each prevail in turn in an endless cosmic cycle. The details of this cosmic cycle are also difficult to establish, but the most widely accepted interpretation is represented in the following diagram. Boom. Here's the sphere, the monad, right? But then you have two forces acting on this monad. So there's a triadic function going on. You have love and strife, basically fighting over the one, fighting over the cosmos, fighting over the the realm of the one. Our world, our cosmos, zoogony under strife, and our cosmos, zoogony under love. Huh. I like this. Beginning from the top of the diagram, proceeding clockwise, when love is completely dominant, she draws all the elements fully together into a sphere in which although the elements are not fused together into a single mass, each is indistinguishable from others. The sphere, then, is in a cosmic state during which no matter can exist and no life is possible. Then, as love's power gradually weakens and strife begins to grow in power, he gradually separates out the elements from the sphere until there is enough separation from matter to come into existence, for the world to be created and for all life to be born. When strife has achieved total domination, we again get a cosmic state in which the elements are separated completely and the world and all life is destroyed in a whirl. Then love begins to increase in power and to draw the elements together again, and so she does. The world is again created and life is again born. When love has achieved full dominion, we return once again to the sphere. As Empedocles puts it, a twofold tale I shall tell. At one time, it grew to be it grew to be one only from many. And at another again, divided to be many from one. There is a double birth of what is mortal and a double passing away. For the uniting of all things brings one generation into being and destroys it, and the other is reared and scattered as they are again being divided. And these things never cease their continuous exchange of position at one time, all coming into one through love, at other again being borne away from each other by strife's repulsion. The cosmos exists in a state of constant flux, beneath which there is certain sort of stability in the eternity of the elements. So that's Empedocles. And let's see if there's anything else in here worth perception and thought, ethics. The daimons, and I already talked about this, the transmigration of the souls. So that's Empedocles. He's a big change in doctrine from the other school, from the other Ionian philosophers. Here's the theology. It says, in religious terms, as well as traditional animal sacrifice, another fundamental basis of Greek society becomes the grossest of impiety of all. He doesn't like sacrifice. Probably apocryphal tale reports that Empedocles sacrificed an ox made of honey and meal at Olympia, the religious heart of Greece, a pointed act of criticism of traditional religion. Further evidence for his radical theology lies in his appropriation of the names of the Olympian gods for his roots of matter and his cosmic forces. Implicitly, he argues that the Olympian gods came into being as misinterpretations of the natural world. The real gods are the elements of nature and the cosmic forces that direct their endless evolutionary cycle. His religious and ethical teachings, then, are purification of the soul in an attempt to achieve perfection and unity with perfect love. He pictures a time in the past, a sort of golden age, when the universal harmony exists. He thinks of like a paradise, like a Garden of Eden type of thing. And that your entire, he has this idea of you need to be saved from and purified in your soul in order to be with God. I mean, that's the Judeo-Christian worldview right there. I mean, he's not a monotheist. I mean, it's funny, if you take Empedocles and you mix it with Xenophanes, and you take certain elements from each of the two, you can literally construct Judeo-Christian theology. You take Xenophanes' monotheism, and you take Empedocles' idea of the soul and purification and the golden age of a time that we need to come back to, and this like eternal guilt, this sort of sin type of idea. You know what I mean? You could see how those are like how Plato or other theologians are taking from these ideas. They're like, it's like a buffet of theologies that they're all taking from. So I think that's, I don't know. I just think there's a lot going on there. So, let's see what time, how much time, how long have we been? Okay. 2 hours and 30 minutes so far. Is that where we're at?
If you've
Let's go to some super chats. Oh, we got one. Right when I said that.
At Cozy dropped $10 super chat. These conceptions of the universe and time and creation really remind me of Core Cosmo TBH. I think it's telling that many of these pre-Socratics went to Egypt.
Yes, absolutely. They all did. I mean, they all taught, like, not all of them, but a majority of their life stories, Pythagoras, Thales, Empedocles, they all have this story of them traveling around. I think Parmenides. I know Empedocles for sure. Thales for sure. Pherecydes for sure. Pythagoras for sure. Parmenides definitely did, actually. He traveled to southern Italy. They're all traveling around, and they're gaining all the knowledge from all these different areas. They even go to the Hyperboreans and learn all their knowledge. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to adopt all the knowledge in the world and unify it all. So, Corey Cosmo, if anyone doesn't know what that is, let me see if I can pull that up, actually. And show, because I've done some videos on this. It's like the cosmic virgin, it means in Greek. Is there even a Wikipedia page for that? I don't even think there is. Holy shit, they don't even have a Wikipedia page for that yet. But it's in the Hermetica, so I can pull up the Hermetica. So the Hermetica is obviously, we all know what that is. It's the Platonist tradition of Egypt, basically. It's like if you take the Egyptian religion and Platonize it, you get the Hermetic tradition. Now, if I do a search for Corey Cosmo, oh, there is. Yeah, it's right here. Stobaean excerpts. In the 5th century, Johannes Stobaeus, or John of Stobi, compiled a huge anthology of Greek poetical, rhetorical, historical, philosophical literature in order to educate his son Septimius. Though epitomized by later Byzantine copies, it still remains a treasure of trove of information about ancient philosophy and literature which would otherwise be lost. Among the excerpts of the ancient philosophical literature by Stobaeus are a significant number of discourses and dialogues attributed to Hermes. While mostly related to the religio-philosophical treatise as found in the Corpus Hermeticum, they also contain some material that has rather technical nature. Perhaps the most famous of the Stobaean excerpts, Corey Cosmo, or the Maiden of the Cosmos, or the Virgin of the Cosmos, you can translate it as. The Daughter of the Cosmos, I guess that's fine. But yeah, this is where the excerpts are. It's God is the demiurge and all this stuff. Platonism. Discourse on the 8th and the 9th, that's another big one. Middle Platonist philosopher Albinus. See? All this stuff. Everything you're just saying is what we're getting at here. So, let's see. I think there was a super chat that I missed that was from... Let's see. Bakken Pan said frankincense or fragrant incense, cannabis, common in symbols. I agree with that. S. Mail said Zoroaster was also anti-sacrifice. See, the lament of the cow is a question whether Empedocles influenced Zoroaster. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. Lament of the cow. Let's see what that is. Here we go. So here's from University Texas. The Gathas of Zoroaster. Yashna 9, the Cow's Lament is one of the most widely discussed Gathas of Zoroaster's opus. It remains one of the most difficult to comprehend since the hymn is unique among the Gathas in its dialogic form. Who is the cow? What is her purpose? Which other characters are speaking or describe? Through the Rig Veda preserves a number of hymns of this type. Scholars have yet to determine their rules and compositions. I want to find the actual text. Does it have it here? Translation. Is this it? He has abandoned his cow pen and has let the breezes haunt his sheepfold. The wild bull has abandoned... No, this is not it. So here we go. In the English translations, Gao is often referred to as the primordial ox. And it's similar to the Egyptian god Apis. Oh, this is the case for the cow's lament. This allegorical text for the soul of the cow despairs over the wretched condition to which the forces of deceit, drudge, have subjected her, and over her lack of protection from an adequate herdsman. Divinities hold council to decide that Zoroaster is the only one who can alleviate her condition. At first she laments, even more, holding Zoroaster to be incompetent, but finally accepts his insistence. At least two levels of meaning have been inferred. The maltreated creature symbolizes the plight of Zoroaster's community, and the soul of the primordial beast is a metaphor that Zoroaster has received from Mazda. In verse 3 of the litany to the moon, Gava Vadota is invoked, the bovine of many species in the care of the moon, Ma. Oh shit, that's the word moon. Specifically Manja, the moon then keeps in the Kithra of the cattle, which is the stock epithet of Ma. Wow. You know what's interesting about this is that there's a Rig Veda hymn where Mithra is called upon to sacrifice a cow. And some describe it as, because a lot of scholars will say the idea of Mithras sacrificing the bull, that's a Roman motif. That's not an ancient Persian or Vedic motif. But then some people argue against that and go, no, here's a Vedic hymn where Mithras is actually slaying a cow. And this is where the idea comes from. So maybe this idea of sacrifice was something that was heavily debated in Magi circles because of what Zoroaster is saying with his hymn to the cow. And then you have the tradition of Mithras slaying the bull. Just something that I'm thinking about, maybe that's what's going on. But anyways, you're right. Sacrifice becomes this thing. Should we continue to do it? Should we sacrifice animals? Should we sacrifice cakes? Like, what do we do? And you can see later on, Christianity decides to not do sacrifice. There's only one sacrifice, and it's a human and God at the same time, which is very fascinating. So that ends up happening. The other super chat that I missed was from somebody who said, where'd it go? Somebody asked me something. I forgot what it was. Oh, can you talk more about Thames and Dionysus? Yeah, I'm going to get to that one in a second. Hopefully you didn't. Cannabis was the moon plant.
Backen_pan_Danny B's dropped $2 super chat. Cannabis was the moon plant. In the Vedic /Avestan.
Yeah. I'll look that up in a second. That's a good thing to look up. But I saw you had another super chat before that. Somebody said, was Pythagoras an Orphic? And I would say yes. And in fact, if I can just go to Herodotus real quick. Herodotus, where he says, let me see, Herodotus, Persian Wars. Let me share my screen. And then I can do a word search for Orphic. I think he says it right here. Yes. He says, they wear linen tunics with fringes hanging about the legs called calarises. He's talking about these Egyptian and Arabic priests that he encountered. and loose white woolen mantles over these, but nothing of wool is brought into the temples or buried with them. That is forbidden. In this, they follow the same rule. This is interesting. We're talking about these similarities between the pre-Socratics and Judaism, but Pythagoras is pointing out the priests of Sinai region, right outside of Egypt, are basically like Orphics. And he says, in this, they follow the same rule as the ritual called Orphic and Bacchic, but which is in truth Egyptian and Pythagorean. So he's basically saying Orphic is Pythagorean. There's a whole book about this, by the way, called by Algis Usdanovins. If I can take your attention real quick to this. This is a book you should read. Orpheus and the Roots of Platonism. This goes back to exactly this whole genealogy that I'm showing you right here. This has all been written about by scholars going back to Algis Usdanovins lived from 1962 to 2010. So he's pretty much a contemporary scholar. He's not like that old. But he passed away in 2010. But he writes Orpheus and the Roots of Platonism. We got another super chat. Appreciate you guys so much.
At Vacan_Pan_ Danny B's dropped $5 super chat. Mithras has a bull image where the cannabis leaf is coming out of the wound. A sacrifice of Homer that was given to the initiate to meet the mediator.
Yes. Yeah, Mithras is the mediator. The cannabis leaf is coming out of the wound. Huh. I wonder if I can find that image. Mithras has where the cannabis leaf is coming out of the wound. I've never seen that before. Let me see if I can find that. Let me see if I can look that up real quick, actually. But until yeah, so that was the super chat that I went to last, which was from Tracy. Thank you for the $2. The one after that comes from... Is my screen still working? I think my whole thing froze. Can you guys hear me? I think I just froze, so let me fix my screen for a second. I think I can... It should be working. I don't know why it's not working. Hold on one second. Okay, it should be working. Why isn't this working? Here, what I'll do is I can... How do I start this over? Am I frozen right now, do you guys? Can you guys see me? Oh, no, I can see my... It's weird. I'm frozen on my screen, but I can see on my phone that I'm still working fine. So I guess I'm still good. I don't know what's going on here with this thing. I wonder how it got frozen. That's weird. That's so weird. Weird. All right, well, as long as I'm still cooking on here. All right, the next super chat was from Bakken Pan Dionysus. Or Danibus. I keep saying Dionysus because it just comes off the tongue. Can you talk more about Thames and Dionysus and monism? Zeus, Dionysus, Ion, Cronus, how Orphic mysteries evolve. Thanks, brother. So, I think what you mean by that is, by the way, are you guys able to see my image that I'm showing? I'm having an issue here with my screen. I'm having an issue with OBS right now. I can't even see my own screen right now. So I'm going to have to do something about this. so I can fix this. Why is it doing that? That's annoying. For some reason, my entire OBS screen is frozen, but I can still see that on the live stream, I'm still fine. So, I don't know what to do. Yeah, I can't like share anything now. You can still, when I pull up the pre-Socratics, you guys can still see that, but I can't. That sucks. I thought OBS was good money. I thought it was supposed to work well. Anyways, what I'll do is, so I guess what I'll do is I'll show you where I restart it. We can still share, but we can still see. Yeah, I'll just what I can do is I can look up the Phanes thing, the Phanes. So what I would say about what you're asking is there's this god called Phanes, and or also known as Ion. And I think that's what you're asking, and this is Phanes right here. Phanes is a primeval deity from the cosmic egg at the beginning of creation. Orpheus, this is from the Orphic Theogonies. It's an androgynous god. He's also called Phanes Dionysus, or in the Mithraism tradition, he's called Ion, or Protogonus. And what he represents the entire lineage of Phanes all the way down to Priapus. And Priapus is the last of the line of Dionysus. Where it says right here. Here's where it says, Phanes was the first god, expressible and acceptable to human ears. You scattered the dark mist, I lay before your eyes, flapping your wings, you whirled about, and throughout this world you brought pure light. For this I call you Phanes, I call you Lord Priapus. And people are wondering, why Priapus? Because Priapus is the last of the lineage. It goes Phanes, and then after Phanes you get Uranos, then Kronos, then Zeus, then Dionysus, and then Dionysus gives birth to Priapus, and Priapus is the final of the lineage. So that is the monistic Orphic god. It comes in traditions, it comes in waves. It's a hierarchy. It's a genealogy of one god who like in Vedic tradition, like in Hinduism, this god manifests itself in different ages. So you have the Vedic ages. What is it called again? The Hindu ages, right? What is it called again? The Hindu ages. Yeah, the Yuga cycle. That's what it's called. So you have, and by the way, the number 432 is big in Platonism too. It's kind of crazy how it lines up. The number 12,000, you know what I mean? You have these Yuga cycles that are ruled by different yugas. Well, this is how the Orphics were described. You would have the age of Phanes, the first age of pure light, the greatest age of all, the Mahayuga. And then every 12,000 years is another age, the age of Uranos, the age of Kronos, the age of Zeus, the age of Dionysus, and then the last age is the age of Priapus. And then so you have Phanes, Uranos, Kronos, Zeus, Dionysus, and Priapus. That's 6. And there's supposed to be 12 total. And I think it's because it cycles 2 times or something like that. But anyways, yeah, that's what you get. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, there's 4 or whatever. I don't know. But anyways, that's what I would say to that question. The one after that was... That was the last one. We caught up. These conceptions of the universe and time. Cannabis was the moon plant. Oh yeah, what I wanted to do is I wanted to find that Mithras. You have another super chat. Or is that a super chat or someone joining? Yeah, someone joining. Okay. Somebody subscribed. That's what that was. So the last person... Yeah, somebody joined. Someone subscribed. Okay, so then the last one, Mithras has the image where the bull... That's the one. That was the last one. I wanted to catch up to that one. So let me see if I could find that one. Oh, this is a frozen screen right here. So let's see. How did you describe that? Mithras has a bull image with cannabis leaf. I've never heard of that before, but that's interesting. I believe it. I'm not saying it's not there. I've never seen it before. I mean, if you can send a link or something, see if you can send a link. Here, I think I have you on Messenger. Let me see if I can find you. Do you have the Mithras image? Oh, I'd love to show that one. Do you have it? There is this one though. This one's pretty colorful. Let me see if I can zoom in on this one. This one right here. Can you guys see this one? This one. I don't know if there's any cannabis leaves in that one, but I'm just reading the chat right now. Aren't we in the Kali Yuga? Abraxas says. TJ, YouTube, block the comment. Priapus. Dang, Switcher. I was trying to ask, isn't Priapus the same one who tried to touch Hestia in a myth? Priapus is always getting in trouble. Let me see. Let's pull up Priapus. Let's just pull up Priapus's in Wiki and just kind of show you like what the hell Priapus is. Minor rustic fertility god, protector of livestock, permanent erection. He was described as very much as being the son of Aphrodite and Dionysus. What a union that is. The son of Dionysus and Chione and other sources. Perhaps father or son of Hermes, or is the son of Zeus or Pan. So there's a lot of traditions. Priapus joined Pan and the Satyrs as a spirit of fertility and growth, though he was perennially frustrated by his impotence. Oh man! Anecdote told by Ovid. He attempted to here's exactly what you said right here. He attempted to outward the goddess Hestia, but was thwarted by a donkey whose brain caused him to lose his erection at the critical moment and woke Hestia. The episode gave him a lasting hatred of donkeys and a willingness to see them killed in his honor. So I guess that means they sacrificed donkeys to Priapus. The emblem of his lustful nature was his permanent erection and his large penis. Another myth states that he pursued the nymph Lotus until the gods took pity on her and turned her into a lotus plant. Priapus is given the title Xenophanes in the Orphic hymn, the protagonist's firstborn, god of the Greeks who came from the cosmic egg. Huh. Priapeia, this is a very famous poem too. Various meters pertaining to the phallic god Priapus. They are believed to date from the 1st century or 2nd century. Traditional theory about their origin is they are an anthology of poems written by various authors on the same subject. Damn. You got a whole genre dedicated to him. It's interesting that he hates the donkeys because in some of these apocryphal sources about the Jews, their sacred animal is the donkey. So he's the anti-Jewish god if you think about that source. I'm trying to think of what else. So, I'm trying to think. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's it for tonight. I think we can shut this down for the night. I think this has been a great time. I mean, let me just read some super chats for a couple minutes, and before I finally end, I'll just read a few more super chats. Or I'm just not even super chats. I'm just comments. So just so you guys know, I'm reading comments right now. You can write whatever. I'm just gonna start reading them. Hestia's sacred animal is the donkey. Oh, that makes sense. Priapus is the OG pool repairman. I just got here. Hercules be reeking at work. How weird it all connects. I know, isn't it? Isn't that kind of crazy? The more you look into this stuff, the more it all just comes back full circle. Why didn't the Romans... You got a super chat from Aiden. Thank you for the 2. Why didn't the Romans combine Yahweh with Zeus?
At Aiden01L,
They kind of do.
Super chat.
They kind of do,
Why didn't
actually.
Romans combine Yahweh and Zeus?
Let's see. What was it? Diodorus? Oh yeah. Let me show you a source right now. The Romans definitely did. Saturnalia. Oh, something just happened. Oh, thank you, Baron, for becoming a member. Appreciate you. That was what happened there.
Baron 1170 has become initiated.
Let's go for another. We could go for another half hour or so. If you guys keep bringing up these nice topics, let's see. Real quick, let me just give me a second, real quick. I'm gonna pull up a source for you that you're gonna really like. You're gonna love this source, by the way. Okay, so watch this. Ready? Where is it? Saturnalia. So yeah, they did definitely equate Zeus with Yahweh. That happens in multiple sources. Josephus, I'll show you 2 or 3 sources actually that do this, that make this equation. So the super chat, why didn't the Romans combine Yahweh with Zeus? All right, so watch this. Ready for this? Where is it? Macrobius. Okay, I got it. Macrobius. If you actually do a word search for Zeus in here, Dionysus is the mind of Zeus. The sun is the mind of the cosmic order, called the heavens. This is late antiquity, by the way. This is when the sun theology, monotheistic theology, becomes dominant in the Roman Empire. This is the time of Sol Invictus, December 25th. Here it is right here. The sun, who they call Dionysus, and while other unambiguous, the poets elaborate. Zeus is one, Ace Zeus, Ace Hades, Ace Helios, Ace Dionysus, Dionysos. They're all one God, right? But anyways, this is what he says. He says, about Yahweh. Hold on, let me get there. I'm getting there. Here it is right here. The greatest God of all is Yahweh. The same way it's spelled in Septuagint for Yahweh. He is Hades in the winter, Zeus at the start of the spring, the sun in the summer, and delicate Iacchos in the fall. And then he says, well, you know what? Let me go to Josephus. Watch this. Josephus says, wait, I think it's actually not this book. It's against Apeiron. I think it's in here where he says Zeus. I think it's here where he says this. The death of Abibalus, Hiram came to the throne. He leveled the city. The temple of Olympian Zeus. Here it is, adorned it with offerings. It is said that Solomon, the sovereign of Jerusalem, sent riddles to Hiram and asked him. That's not it. Pretty sure it's in Antiquities where he says Zeus basically is Yahweh. Let me see. Hold on one second. Gemini. The letter of Aristius. Oh yeah, Aristius. That's in Josephus, though, I think. Isn't that the letter of Aristius? Let me just see if I can just look up Aristius. Letter of Aristius. Is it? Why can't I find it? Hold on. Is it in here? Aristeus. Yeah, it's right here. So here we go. It is Josephus. He says, when Aristeus had spoken these, so it's before this. There we go. If I just found it. Here we go. The Jews, the laws of the Jews. So he talks about now a certain Aristeus, who was one of the king's closest friends in Alexandria, and he went to the king. We ought not, king, to allow ourselves to be deceived, but to show truth as it is. The Jews, to translate them for your pleasure, so many Jews are slaves in your kingdom. In accordance, there are your magnanimity and your goodness, since the God who gave them their laws. Here it is, right here. Super chat from, who's that?
At Vacan_Pan_Danny B's dropped $2 super chat. I sent you an image and link. We'll find
Okay.
better L8R.
Perfect. I will. That's what I can't wait to see that in a second. Am I even showing my screen? Am I still showing? I think I'm showing it, right? Aren't I showing the? I'm not. Am I showing the right screen right now? Are you guys seeing me showing Josephus right now? Oh, I'm showing the YouTube. Okay. So now you should be seeing. Now you should be seeing Josephus again. Okay, perfect. Josephus says, "In accordance, therefore, your magnanimity and the goodness set them free, since the God who gave them their laws is the same who presides over your kingdom, as I have succeeded in learning after much study. For both they and we worship the same God who created the universe, whom we call the appropriate term Zena." This is Zeus. This is the accusative version of Zeus. That's all it is. It literally is the word Zeus in the accusative form. "Giving him that the name, in fact, he breathes life, Zane, into all creatures." So there it is right there.
And Porphyry and Timotheos 1107 dropped $4.99 super chat. Read my previous comments about J. Dolan and the Rudraic and Mitteraic god types.
Oh yeah, Jay Dolan. Yeah, that's I got his book here, over here somewhere. I don't know where I did with it. It's over here somewhere though. But yeah, the Rudra and Mithraic god types. He does a lot of comparative mythology stuff. He's definitely. Let me see if I can pull that up. It's in his book. I don't know if I can find that right now, but he's got a channel. He's got a channel called what is it called again? What the hell is it called again? Why am I drawing a blank right now? I can't think of the name right now. Shit. I'm looking for it. See if his book's over here somewhere. I think it's the Taliesin's Map. Yeah, Taliesin's Map. Definitely check that out, Taliesin's Map. Let me just put that in the chat. So, thank you for that super chat, by the way. Now let me go back to. That was Josephus. I think there's another source too. Oh, Plutarch. Plutarch does say on Isis and Osiris that the god Theos Hypsistos is considered to be Zeus and Yahweh. So the God Most High is Zeus and Yahweh, he says. And then I think Varro says that it is Varro actually. Varro cites a fragment that the Jews worship Jupiter Sabazius, which would be Zeus. Jupiter Sabazius. So yeah, that is commonly thought of. Those comparisons were commonly made in antiquity. The next super chat, which was from, we had the Baron said thanks Neil. The next one was from Bakken Pan. Okay, he sent me an image. He says, let me see if I can find that one. That's a YouTube video. Let's see it. Is it in the video? Is it like any particular part of the video? I don't think I can watch the whole video. I meant because Jews didn't pray.
Dropped $2 super chat. I meant because Jews didn't pay temple and rituals.
Didn't pay temple and rituals. What do you mean by that? Because they paid the tax for the Roman tax. They just had their own temple going on, and they didn't actually practice the rituals of the Roman imperial cult. Is that what you mean by that? Yeah, in that sense, you're right. They separated out their own god from the other gods. which is interesting. You'd think that they would be able to incorporate them somehow, and they weren't, which I think was a big mistake. I think they should have did a better job at just incorporating. And this is what Antiochus IV tried to do. He gets written in history as this demonic proto-Hitler figure, when all the evidence just points to that he was literally trying to incorporate them into Hellenism. He was literally the most, like, honestly trying to do the best thing for everybody. We wouldn't be in this mess right now with the war with Iran. None of this would be going on right now. There would be no Israel. There'd be no Palestine. There'd be no, it would just be, there'd be, oh my God, the world would be so much better right now. I think about these things. I think about Julian the Apostate. I think about Antiochus IV. And like, those are turning points in the world that could have changed everything. And we're sitting here with all these problems because of that. So yeah, you're right. Why didn't they? You're right. It's a great question. So, okay. So this Mithras, you sent me a video. So I don't know what you mean. Do you have the image? Okay. Now you gave me the image. Okay. So there we go. So I can do that. Now I can take the image, download it real quick. And then I can share the screen. So 1 second. Back to OBS. Let me see if I can send image. Why can't I bring this up? Okay, here we go. Can you guys see my screen right now? Okay, so here it is. From the body of the victim spring all the useful herbs and plants that cover the earth. From the spinal cord sprang the wheat that gave us our bread, and from its blood the vine that produces the sacred drink of the mysteries. Franz Cumont. Oh yeah, I have Franz Cumont's book right here. It's all beat up. That's how much I've read through this book. So, are you saying the blood is making a cannabis symbol? That's pretty crazy. I wonder what the original one looks like, because remember, this is a painting or a drawing, though. So I'm interested to know what the actual, because that's a very famous statue. I think I can pull that up. I think I can find that actual statue of Mithras. So, let's see what we can do here. Let's do this. Mithras slaying bull, Franz Cumont. Cumont statue. I wonder if I could find that exact same one and see what it looks like, and see if it has that same setup. Okay, hold on. I'm looking at the image you sent me, and it's got on the bottom. It's got in Greek. Is that Greek or no? It's Latin. Alchemist. Oh, I think I found it. Is this it? I can't see the text though. It's not. I hate when these it cuts off the image for some reason. I can't see the bottom, so I can't verify if it's the same one. Oh, is this it? This is it right here. I found it. Found the exact same one, and it does kind of look like, okay, watch this. You're going to like this. Let me delete this. Delete this. Okay, so you should, right now, you should be looking at this image right here. I found the exact same statue from a British museum it's sitting in right now. Now, I need to know if you guys are looking, because I can only look at you guys through my phone, right? Or I can only check the chat through my phone while I'm looking at something, because I am frozen right now on OBS, unfortunately. So, okay, you can see it. Now look at, there's your cannabis. I don't know if I'd say it's cannabis. That looks like wheat. It looks like 3 images. It looks like the blood is making a symbol of wheat. But it does look eerily like cannabis. It does, eerily like cannabis. Yeah. It has that same, it's similar. I don't know if that's what the author, I can't say if it's what the artist intended to do. To be honest, I don't know if that's how I would make that stretch. But it definitely looks like it. Like, it definitely has the same sort of feel of like a cannabis leaf. But yeah, I don't know. That does look pretty cool. It's definitely a good find. I'm not gonna sit there and say it doesn't look like it. It definitely looks like it. So, all right, let's see what else we got from the chat. I feel like you should do more work with Jay Dolan. Just saying, yeah. I mean, we've done some videos and stuff. Definitely get him back on soon for sure. Oh, I think we got a super chat. Wheat. Osiris, also the wheat god. Yeah, and this is big of the Eleusinian mysteries.
At Smill still dropped $2 super chat.
Let me show you what I'm right now. What I mean.
Osiris was also wheat god.
Let me show what I mean right now. The wheat. So, okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. Window capture, boom. See? They're holding wheat right here. She's the grain goddess. See? Metaneira, who offers the wheat that is a recurring symbol of the mysteries. So that is very, you could find this all over the place for the mysteries. And the wheat is also a psychedelic because you can produce kykeon from it. Demeter was also a poppy goddess who brought poppy from Crete to Eleusis. And Kyle Ruck talks about how the wheat has like properties that when mold grows on it, or when fungus grows on it, it becomes psychedelic property. And again, you have the whole descent and ascent ritual going on here. So that's definitely true. All right, let's see what other comments we got. Thank you for that super chat, S. Mill. Blood wheat, blood red, produce alcohol. Yeah, that's funny you mentioned that, because it's to go back to that statue. If we want to look at that statue one more time, it's like a Eucharist. The blood and the body, it becomes wheat. You know what I mean? And let me see if I can find that Vedic hymn about Mithra slaying a cow. I think it's I'm pretty sure it's slaying a cow. The narrative is from the Shatapatha Brahmana. And it says, the Rig Veda Mitra almost joined with Varuna. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know if I can find it. Here, I got it in one of my videos, though. So I could probably just pull up my video and see if I can find it. 1 second. It's the one I did on... Wait, which video was it again? It was the one I did on Mithras. But it was on, like... I think it was on Christmas, too, or something. It was something. What was it again? Brumalia? Was it the one on Brumalia? Let me see if it's in this video right here. Mithras. Wait, I know, I'm almost positive I have it in here somewhere.
We see here with this Cretan drachma from 500 BCE, Hercules is slaying the bull. This typical rites of the Christians must also be translated solstice, nor Latin from the first. Watch my video, God's saviors.
Let's just play this part right here.
Whoever the deity is.
All right, let's play it from right here. Window capture, boom. Play.
Portrayed in Roman Mithraeums across the Roman Empire, including the god Saturn too, who, like Mithras, played a special role in initiation. Both Sol Invictus and Saturn played prominent roles in the Mithraic mysteries, and Sol was equated with Mithras, even though they're also depicted as separate. Mithras slaying the bull, or tauroctony, is an image that was at one time used for the goddess Nike slaying the bull, as I'm showing here. As you can see here, the bull looks exactly the same. The iconography of Nike slaying the bull stretches back to ancient Greek classical period. Bull slaying rites were something central to the priesthood of Magna Mater in Rome, who would perform ritual bull sacrifice in the temple, in which an initiate would stand under a secret room where the blood from the bull would rain down on them, and they would be ritually washed from the blood of the sacrifice. Similar imagery is invoked in Christianity, with saved souls being washed in the blood of the Lamb, who is Christ. These rites of Magna Mater date back to 200 BCE, when they imported Magna Mater from Asia Minor, and, like Elagabalus, she also brought with her a secret stone that fell from heaven too. Something to note there. An image of a man slaying a bull was discovered in Dacia, modern day of Romania. On the helmet, there are some...
By the way, real quick note on this right here. This helmet was stolen from it got stolen somehow. It got a lot, like someone stole it from a fucking museum or something. It just got recovered last week. And this is the oldest image in the world of a tauroctony going on, and it looks like Mithras. Scholars are doubting it's Mithras because of how old it is, because they're like, dude, Mithras slaying the bull doesn't go back that far, and this is dated to like 300 BC or something, or 400 BC or something crazy. Maybe I say it in here, but the point is, we don't find Mithras slaying the bull until the first source that mentions Mithras slaying a bull is in the Thebaid by Statius in Latin, which is like 90 AD. So that is 1st century AD is the first time you hear about Mithras slaying a bull. But some made the argument that it's older than that based on this right here, which is what I'm showing you right now, and because there's a Vedic hymn where Mithras is slaying a cow, which I'm trying to find. I think it's in here somewhere. The point I'm trying to make is it might be older than scholars think. And this helmet right here is definitely showing someone slaying a bull, if not Mithras, some other hero. We just don't know. It doesn't say Mithras on the helmet. But Dacia was one of these locations that was heavily immersed in the Persian. This is from the Persian period. So I think this is like 400 BC, I think it is. And the Dacians were not only conquered by the Persians for a little bit of time, but also traded with them. So their culture could have been, they could have got the Persian imagery from them.
Who will argue that the bull slayer hero is an early Mithra or even Perseus due to the hat looking somewhat like a Phrygian cat, but I don't think this is so. However, this image is still connected to the Mithraic tauroctony in a different way, but even stranger in my opinion. Here we see Attis Mithras synced together. The Mithra Attis of Ponticapium is dated to sometime in the Hellenistic era. Some even say that this is neither Attis or Mithras, but Eros in Oriental dress. Whoever the deity is, it agrees with Macrobius over half a century later, who syncs them all anyway. He is dressed in a pair of trousers and a jacket, leaving the stomach and genitals uncovered. He grabs the bull under control with one knee, grasping one of its horns, one hand, and the knife raised high. The opposite side is said to have a triangular fire hole. As we see, Attis certainly depicted in similar fashion here in the 1st century BCE. Also, Eros Harpocrates, a Hellenized version of the god Horus from Egypt, from the same era, 1st century BCE, looks almost identical to Attis. The mixed conclusions to who the previous bull slayer is understandable, but it also brings a lot of context as to how these sons of God saviors became synced by the Romans. If we look at the image of Mithras slaying the bull here. Now, remember when I said that the bull slayer on the Dacian helmet could still be related to Mithras, even if it's not Mithras, but in a weirder way. This is why I said that. It's very hard to see, but scholars have found Latin text on the bull that is being slayed. The text reads, Nama Sabazio. Also, Dio Soli Invicto Mithrae. Now, the image blew my mind right off of my head when I saw this for the first time, because if you watch my video about the roots of Dionysus, you would know that Sabazius, or Sabazio, is the most ancient Thraco-Phrygian / Hittite Bronze Age version of
it's over here.
Mithra as the sun. As a collective of solar deities, a grouping that persists in later Vedic texts. Vedic Mithra is revered as the god overseeing honesty, friendship, contracts, and gatherings, but also daylight, imperial and mighty showerers, lords of heaven and earth, beholders of the universe. You approach Mithra and Varuna with variegated clouds to hear the sound of your praises and cause the sky to send down rain by the power of the emitter of showers. Rig Veda. Vedic scholar Dr. Sayana says about this passage, Mithra is associated with the light of dawn and the morning sun, while Varuna becomes associated with the evening and ultimately night. In the Artha Veda, Mithra is associated with sunrise, and accordingly, Mithra is worshipped in the sunrise prayers of the Hindus. In the morning, Upasthana prayer recited to the risen sun after contemplation of the sacred Gayatri mantra is a collection of Vedic verses addressing Mithra. There is even a midwinter solstice festival known as the Mitrosavam, venerating Mithra as the sun. If that's not solar traits, then I don't know what is. Again, Mitra's name shows up as one of the 108 names of the Vedic sun. Also, researching for this video, I found deep in the Vedas a passage about Mithra that is tied to bull sacrifice, conquering, and victory. Yajur Veda 2 5.5 says, on the new moon, he should sacrifice with the clotted curds for Mithra and Varuna. On the full moon, the soma is pressed for the gods.
So there's your drug reference, Bacchanali. There's your drug reference.
During the half month, it is pressed forth for them, and a bull for Mithra and Varuna is to be slaughtered for them
There it is,
at
right
the
there.
new moon.
On the new moon, he should sacrifice with the clotted curds for Mithra and Varuna. On the full moon, the soma is pressed for the gods during the half moon, and a bull for Mithra is to be slaughtered for them. So, some might go, so what? Sacrifices are everywhere. Every god gets sacrifices. You found one for Mithra, and you think this is all of a sudden connected to the Roman period? I would say you're right. That's a very fair point. But don't tell me that there's none. People will say there's none, doesn't exist. There's not anything about Mithra and bull slaying. All I'm saying is there is. Here it is. It might not be a direct connection to what we find in Roman sources, but and the idea if you combine this with what we find in the Dacian imagery, there might be something behind the idea of Mithra being connected to bull sacrifice pre-Roman strata. If that makes sense.
In that he drives away the calves, he metes out the seat and the oblation holder. In that he sacrifices at the new moon with the clotted curds for Mithra and Varuna. The bull, which is slaughtered for the gods, becomes his also. He mounts upon the gods in truth.
There it is. He mounts upon the gods in truth. Who mounts
upon their sacrifice.
So it's not even just Mithra sacrificing a bull. He's mounting the bull. There's an image happening. There's a clear cultic image in this hymn right here.
This is the mark. He becomes worse. If he does not, he remains so.
And it even says if he misses the mark, he becomes worse. So there's like humanity's dependent on, or like the outcomes dependent on Mithras hitting the mark. Isn't that kind of crazy?
For this sacrifice has a razor edge, and swiftly becomes holy or perishes. His vow is, he shall not speak untruth. He shall not eat meat. He shall not approach a woman. They shall not clean his raiment with cleansing stuff.
Dude, I think I don't know about you guys, but I think this is it. I think this is the origin of Mithras and the bull slaying iconography. And I think this makes a lot of sense that you'd find this in the Rig Veda or the Yajur Veda, and then the Persians who are trading with the Dacians pass over some of their culture, which explains this.
Be ritually washed from Oriental dress. Whoever the deity is, it agrees with Macrobius over half a century later. I think this is so.
From the Dacians. So, I just want to show you one more thing. Watch this. The Dacian helmet. Here it is right here. Okay, so let me share my screen again. No capture. This right here, the golden helmet of Cato Fenesti, is a Ghetto-Dacian helmet made of electrum from the 5th century BC. Now that's weird, because this is 500 years before anyone mentions Mithras slaying a bull. And you have a guy that looks like Mithras, with wearing a Phrygian cap, slaying a bull. He even has the cape and everything. The cape? Are you kidding me? With this, look, it looks like he's got like stars on his. It looks just like Mithras. The cape and everything. And you can see here, it says down here, the iconography on the right side of the helmet is of great interest. It has been interpreted in light of the Tauroctony scene from the Mithraic mysteries. Environment and influence might well account for the change. The sacrifice of the ram might be performed by the king priest. But the point I'm trying to make is people thought this was not nonsense to even think that, because you don't get any mention of the bull slaying until way, way, way later. And I'll even show you what source that is right now, where Mithras gets synced with Osiris and Helios. So the idea that Mithras, Sol Invictus, as a unifying god of gods, is it's in Statius. Watch this. Share screen. Statius Thebaid and Mithras. Look at this. He even calls it a Canaanite. He even says it's Persian. So this is what I can't stand about some of these Mithraic scholars. I think they're lazy, man. Their idea that they're trying to separate Mithras from Mithra because they have their reasons. But look at what it says right here. This is from 90 AD. This is supposedly the first reference to Mithras slaying a bull, and then scholars will even say that the iconography of Mithras slaying the bull comes from this text, not from anywhere else. Comes from this Latin text, not from Greek, not from Persian, from Latin. And this is the scholarly consensus. I'm not even kidding. And they say, it says right here, call you rosy Titan. And the fashion, that's a reference to the sun, the rosy Titan, Helios, rosy Titan. In the fashion of the Achaemenian race, or Osiris, there's the grain reference again, the grain bringer, or Mithras twisting the horns wroth to follow in the rocks of Perseus' cavern. So it's Mithras, it's Perseus, it's Osiris, it's Helios, and they're all synced together. So, rosy Titan. You know what I mean? So, Hyperion, the sun, or Helios, is a Titan. Hyperion's a Titan, yeah. That's where that reference comes from. So anything? Let's see what else we got going on in the chat. Anything else in the chat going on? Any more super chats? Yeah, you just mentioned Osiris was a weak god. The last super chat even just said, that's so funny. You just said Osiris was a weak god. And I just pulled this up, didn't even realize. And it says, in the Achaemenian race, Osiris the grain bringer, and Mithras twisting the horns. And it's sure enough, we even have that image of Mithras slaying the bull with the grain coming out of it. So this is what Ion is, by the way. Ion is Osiris and Mithras rolled together. That's what Ion is. Ion is that god. Let me show you guys what I mean. Ion, god. And if you watch my videos, you already know this. I've already heard me talk about this a million times about Ion. Hellenistic deity. There he is right there. He twists the zodiac like Mithras does. The serpent. Right? That's Ion. And he's associated with the Orphic religion, the Mithraic religion. And it says, like, who is he? Well, he's conflated with Pluto. He's conflated with nature, Phusis. He's conflated with chaos, primordial chaos. He's conflated with Dionysus by Christian and Neoplatonist. The Suda says he's Osiris and Adonis at the same time. I mentioned this in one of my previous videos recently. Alexandrian Ion is Osiris Dionysus reborn, and he's the coiling serpent god in the Mithraic religion. He's all these gods. And he's born of a virgin. He's born of a virgin on January 6th, which is the epiphany of the Christian religion. I mean, it's just crazy how all that lines up. It's just nuts to me that this is not talked about more. It really is. It's one of my biggest pet peeves about biblical scholarship is how much they neglect some of these sources from the Christians themselves. Actually, that's what's even crazy. The Christians have been telling us this stuff. Let's see, what else do we got? Got a couple more minutes before midnight. Ion seems like Kronos. Exactly. Kronos and Ion are both time gods. So that's why people thought that Kronos was that lion-headed god, because it was the time god. And the Ion is called the let me show you something right now. Ion. Watch this. Watch this. Window capture. So, whoops, that's not it. This. So you should be able to see this. It says the emblema of the Ion and the chronoi. Because Cronus means time, Ion means eternity. So Ion is like an updated version of Cronus, of Saturn. He's Saturnian, and his disciples are called, if you could read that in Greek, chronoi. Chronoi, that's what it says. And there's Ion, I, Alpha, Iota, Omega, and Nu. Ion, Melon, and then it's like, it means past, present, future. So that's Ion, the chronoi and the chronoi. He's a Platonized Cronus or Saturn. He's the time god. So that's absolutely correct. And so he represents Kronos, past, present, and future. That's what he is. He is using Zoroastrian material to represent Iranian religion, and is just farcical. Not only are there Nart sagas, but also the living tradition of Asianism? Huh. I don't know what that means. The Nile is rocking, the universe is smiling. Thanks. Let's see. I think I'm gonna finish this off pretty soon. But anything else you guys want to say? Witch doctors are ancient healers. Now they do it in a human way, saying it was of the devil. I was talking to Rogan Waldes about Jay Dolan. Nice. Wish I learned Ossetic, which is my ethnic language, which I haven't bothered to learn. Thanks, you too, when you do. So, well, this has been a fun stream, I think. I think I gave a pretty good representation of the Pre-Socratics. Obviously, get this book by Kirk and Raven. And this is an older edition. I don't know why I had this one up here. This is the newer edition right here. Kirk and Raven, Pre-Socratic Philosophers. I have 2 copies of it, so maybe I should give one away. This is the older edition. This is the newer edition, Cambridge. Definitely get Friedrich Nietzsche's Philosophy and the Tragic Age of the Greeks, and read that one. Read it. That's such a good book about the Pre-Socratics. Yeah. Oh, the golden chain. Algis Uxanovitz, who I talked about earlier, who also wrote Orpheus and the Roots of Platonism. So there's 2 books here. Orpheus and the Roots of Platonism and the Golden Chain. They have to do with everything I've been talking about in this video. That's a good one. I think that's good enough for now. We can start with that. This is a good book too. One God, Pagan Monotheism in the Roman Empire by Cambridge University Press. This is a good one. It talks about how, we even see it's not just the Jews that are worshiping one God. It seems to be a huge movement happening after 200 BC and onward. There's just more and more and more evidence piling up as archaeologists go and dig up new sites, and they're like, what the hell? What's this temple? There's just one God here. What the hell? Is this a Jewish temple? They go, this is a synagogue? And then they're like, they do further research. I'm like, there's no Hebrew, no nothing. It's pure Greek, it's like just monotheistic Greeks going on here. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm trying to show you the pre-Socratics. I'm trying to show you Xenophanes and his whole school and his whole tradition. Parmenides and Heraclitus and Pherecydes. And you can see there's a lot going on with that. So, anyways, that's it for tonight. Hope you all just attained true gnosis, because you have just attained true gnosis.
You have just attained true gnosis. The demiurge has no power over